Hello, good afternoon. I think some of the members have mentioned that we are unable to hear. The program not yet started. It will start by 2:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time, as per schedule.
చేంజ్ చేసుకోవచ్చు కదా, మీరు చేంజ్ చేసుకోవచ్చు. గౌన్ గారికి ఇచ్చేయండి. గౌన్ వీడియో చెప్పండి.
Start చేశాను. 27. Mr. Mac, are you there? Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
ఇంట్రొడక్షన్
తర్వాత
గారికి అది ప్రజెంట్ చేయండి. ప్రజెంట్
ఈ లాగ్ కానీ కొత్త ఫస్ట్ టైం చేశాను సార్. ఈ నోట్ ఇవన్నీ మామూలుగా పెట్టేస్తాను సార్. ఆయన
Hello. Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening to all of you. Greetings from National Institute of Agricultural Extension Management. It is popularly called Manage. It is an autonomous organization under the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, Government of India. On behalf of Manage, I extend a warm welcome to our Director General Manage and all the panelists and delegates participating in the webinar, Carbon Finance for Agriculture Towards Climate Risk Mitigation. Once again, welcome. You all know that agriculture is one of the major contributor of greenhouse gases, and about 20% of the contribution is coming from agriculture. And in the COP26, also India is committed for net zero emission by 2070. And this can be achieved by a contribution from all the sector, air, agriculture, and other sector also. So we all know that there are a lot of research is going on from academic and research organization, developing a lot of technologies for carbon sequestration and greenhouse gas emission mitigation. And this can be achieved by adaptation of all these technologies available in the research station, either maybe sustainable land use or good agriculture practices, soil and water management practices, or agroforestry, or intervention for minimizing the enteric fermentation, etc. But it requires huge investment, and there are a lot of opportunity for investment, especially in agriculture sector through carbon financing. To upscale these good agriculture practices and to reduce the atmospheric greenhouse gas emission through carbon sequestration. Also, there is an immense scope for carbon trading due to increased demand across the globe to meet the voluntary commitment or also fulfill the compliance of the government and also corporates. So, however, this area is new in India. Actually, many extension of functionaries or developmental functionaries, this area is very, very new. Hence, we felt that it is necessary to create some awareness about various aspects, like, what are the carbon sequestration, what are the areas in which carbon sequestration can be done, and what are all the current status in carbon trade, nationally, internationally, and also globally accepted methodology for assessing the carbon sequestration and sources of carbon finance, and what are the mechanism through carbon finance works, and what are the accrued benefits to the farmer as well as environment due to their carbon sequestration, and what are all the success stories globally and also nationally available, and what kind of challenges we are facing for this. So in order to discuss on this, we have with us very diverse group of national and international experts working in this area, from public and also private sector, scientists and freelancers and developmental functionaries from agribusiness company. So many of these areas, whatever we discussed, will be expected to discuss during the webinar. And at the end of the webinar, the participants are expected to understand the subject comprehensively and holistically, and to apply the learnings in this working area, in their area of work. So we feel that this may facilitate the adoption of good practices towards mitigation of climate change risk. So with this, I would like to extend a warm welcome to Director General Manage, Dr. P. Chandrasekharji, and all the panelists, Mr. Mac Ramachandran, co-founder and director, Future Inc. From Japan, and Dr. Venkatachalam Anbumuli, Director of Research Strategy and Innovation, Economic Research for Asian and East Asia, Indonesia, and Mr. CSR Murthy, Chief General Manager from NABARD, Mumbai, and Mr. Vijayvardhan Vasireddy, General Manager, Operation ITC, Social Investment, Calcutta, and Dr. Dinesh K. Venby, National Professor Soil Science from Punjab Agriculture University, Ludhiana, and Mr. Chandrasekhar Haribhav Batsavle, founder, member, and managing trustee, Saguna Rural Foundation, Maharashtra, and Dr. Sudarshan Datta, lead agronomist, Norway-based Agaro Carbon Alliance, and Dr. Manish Anand, senior fellow at the Energy and Research Institute, TERI, in New Delhi, and Madam Indra Mallo, IES project director, project on climate resilient agriculture, Pokhara project in Maharashtra. So I extend a all welcome to all the panelists once again, and also I extend a warm welcome to all the participants. There is an overwhelming response for this webinar. There were 1,581 candidates have registered. I think currently around 400 have joined here. Maybe some more will be joining. Out of 1,551 are from 24 countries. Even other countries also they have joined. I also extend a warm welcome to delegates who have joined from European Union, World Bank officials, and officials from international organizations. I extend a warm welcome to extension functionaries of Agriculture and Allied Department, scientists from ICR and agriculture universities, entrepreneurs, representatives from corporates, NGOs across the country. So after this inaugural remarks of DG Manage, each panelist will be requested to make a presentation for about 15 minutes, considering the limitation of time, because many panelists are there. Panelists are requested to stick on to time, so their presentation can be completed within 15 minutes. And participants are requested to keep your audio in mute mode till the end of the program. And if you have any query, you are requested to kindly post your question in the chat box. At the end of the presentation of all the panelists, your questions will be taken up and it will be discussed during the question and answer session. Now, with this, I request our Director General, Dr. P. Chandrasekhara, to inaugurate and give his remarks. Before his remarks, I would like to briefly introduce him. Dr. Chandrasekhara is a leading professional in the field of agriculture with more than 3 decades of experience and expertise in the areas of agricultural extension management, agripreneurship development, agriculture marketing management, and public-private partnership. And during his service, he headed 3 premier agriculture institutions in India, which worked for Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, Government of India. He served as Director General in charge of National Institute of Plant Health Management and Director General of Chaudhary Charan Singh National Institute of Agriculture Marketing, and currently serving as a Director General of National Institute of Agricultural Extension Management, MANAGE. And he is man of innovation for his innovative works and leadership. He has many awards to his credit. So with this small introduction, I extend a warm welcome to him once again. So over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Balasubramani. Namaskar to all the esteemed speaker of today's webinar and all the delegates from different parts of the world on behalf of National Institute of Agricultural Extension Management. I would like to welcome you all again to this webinar. This is also live streamed in YouTube. Many other people are also watching apart from the people who are participating in this program. Climate change is a global issue. Of course, as a nation, as a national institute, as important stakeholders in agriculture, we cannot exclude ourselves from this. This webinar is the maybe very important step for our organization to make a very important move next to mainstream climate change and adaptation in agricultural extension management. We will wait for valuable inputs from esteemed speaker who are going to deliver later. MANAGE is National Institute of Agricultural Extension Management. Basically, we work with Government of India and all the state governments in India, not only public sector representatives, we also work with agribusiness companies and NGOs, private extension service providers also. We undertake training, research, consultancy, policy advocacy, organize international programs. We also have our own education program and also implement Government of India programs. In an year, in fact, we are in touch with around 50,000 stakeholders in agriculture development. Actually, MANAGE as an institution, probably we will be greatly benefited by the inputs of all these, the speakers who are going to speak later. And we will get very important strategy for mainstreaming climate change and adaptation in agricultural extension management. 2-3 important issues are there. Just I would like to share before this August audience. Number one, creating awareness about climate change and adaptation is itself the biggest challenge in a big country like ours. We have 130 million farmers. More than 75% are small and marginal farmers. Landholding is less than 1.08 hectare per small farmer. So it's very difficult to reach all the farmers and educate them. This biggest challenge. It is very important to have address some of the research gaps also, because what is the impact of implications of climate change on certain crops, certain sectors in a specific area. I think these researchable issues also should be addressed properly so that it will give a clear technical backstopping for extension functionaries when we go to the farmers. They will ask what will happen to my crop in this place maybe next year because of climate change. We should be in a position to address those issues. And the third and most important thing is mainstreaming climate change issues in our regular extension activities. So whatever the programs we are implementing at present, whatever the institutional network we have, at district level, state level, national level, and international level, probably all the programs there is need for mainstreaming climate change issues in our activities. So as an institution, what we can do in climate change and adaptation and popularizing carbon financing. We are implementing a very interesting program called Agri Clinic and Agribusiness Center Scheme. Unemployed agriculture graduates are given agripreneurship development training. We have trained around 75,000 unemployed agriculture graduates in this country. 33,000 people have established their own small agri-ventures in different parts of the country. They provide value-added extension services to farmers. We can call them as paid agriculture extension functionaries, private extension functionaries. They charge for their services. They cover an average 20 villages, and it is very easy for us to cover sensitize large number of farmers through these agripreneurs located and operating from villages. They are very close to farmers. So we have access to 33,000 agripreneurs who are working in different parts of the country. Second important stakeholder with whom Vantage is dealing is rural level input dealer who provides different inputs and information to farmers. So actually they are not from agriculture background. So government took a stand that we have to sensitize all these input dealers in basic agriculture knowledge. So we launched a program called DESI, Diploma in Agricultural Extension Services for Input Dealers, only on Sunday, which is weekly holiday for input dealers. We started teaching them basic agriculture knowledge, and they have to write exams and all these practical tests and all they have to complete. Finally, certification is done. So this we have a network of around 66,000 input dealers in different parts of the country who are qualified under the DESI program. I think they are the first level of information consultants for the farmers. So this is another layer which is available for us to reach the farmers. The third one is we are also promoting agri startups. They also play a very important role. We are in touch with around 900 agri startups, and more than 216 agri startups are incubated in Manage. And we are also giving a grant ranging from 5 lakh to 25 lakh rupees for all these agri startups. We can also make use of these agri startups in promoting carbon financing. Then we have also initiated a Manage FPO Academy. This academy is dedicated to address all the needs of farmers producers organizations. We're also implementing a World Bank aided program in a state called Andhra Pradesh in southern part of the country. So through Manage FPO Academy, we can also reach the farmers producers organizations. Regarding mainstreaming carbon financing in extension at a state level and national level, probably one of the best window is Atma, Agriculture Technology Management Agency, implemented at district level, which takes care of agricultural extension activities. So in Atma, we have a document called Strategic Research Extension Plan. If this plan identifies carbon finance as one of the important area, what are all the extension activities we are carrying out? Maybe a training, demonstration, exposure visit, farmer scientist interaction, and production of scientific literature. Everything can focus on these kind of issues. This is one of the important window. Under Atma, we have a farm school concept. If some farmer adopt this concept, how he will be benefited, probably that can also be very effectively demonstrated. They are the existing program. Only thing we have to mainstream carbon finance in this. And promotion of 10,000 farmers producers organization. It is recently launched Government of India program. I think for carbon finance, one of the basic requirement is a group of farmers, and this FPO scheme promotes group, and also it is aided by Agriculture Infrastructure Fund, which provides financial assistance to farmers to establish agriculture infrastructure. So these are all the opportunities available from our organization side, and we can also take the benefit of many Government of India programs. This is time to listen from experts. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for your inaugural address and also giving a way forward to take carbon financing through extension system. Thank you once again. Now I request Mr. Mac Ramachandran to make a presentation on scope and importance of carbon financing global perspective. Before that, I'm very happy to introduce Mr. Mac. He is an entrepreneur and an early carbon offset business owner with over 25 years of experience in building community programs in developing countries for emergency relief and also long-term sustainability. Out of 25 years of service, 21 years with United Nations in various countries. His expertise is on large-scale project implementation, project management in developing countries, and also leveraging markets and technology for greater goods. With this small introduction, I extend warm welcome, and sir, over to you. Mr. Mac. Yeah, is it?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you see the screen I'm sharing with the PowerPoint?
Yeah. Earlier it was seen, but once again, can you please share?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll share again. Now it's now WebEx is taking a bit of time. Give me 1 second. I will share it. There you go. Oh no, there. Can you see it now, sir?
Not yet. Actually, earlier it was visible.
Hello.
Earlier it was visible. Yeah. Now, yeah. It is coming.
Very good. Thank you. Once again, thank you very much, Dr. Chandrasekhar and Dr. Balasubramani, for the opportunity. I was very humbled to listen to Manage's reach and achievement so far. So I hope we can contribute a little bit to the scope of the webinar that you're speaking about. I'll go through probably 4 things, and I will try to keep it to 10 minutes so that we can keep to time. I'll introduce myself a little bit, and Dr. Balasubramani did a good job, but maybe a bit more. I'll talk a little bit about the current state of carbon markets, with both Dr. Chandrasekhar and Dr. Balasubramani mentioned. I'll think a little bit through around the specifics of agriculture soil carbon, and then I'll try to come up with some suggested next steps. But this is just an early stage, and I very much welcome inputs from many of the experts here who probably know a lot more than I do. As he said about myself, I'm originally from India, Tamil Nadu, left 30 years ago, got a PhD in economics in the States, and very accidentally landed up with the United Nations.
Sorry,
and
Mr.
I worked in
Mac,
Angola,
sorry.
Cambodia, North Korea, Sudan, Zimbabwe.
Mr. Mac, sorry, it is your presentation.
Go
is
ahead.
not visible.
Presentation is visible or not visible?
Not yet visible. It is showing as starting to share content. Can you please close down and once again you can share?
Okay, I will do that again. I'm really sorry about the technical difficulties. I wonder why. Let me go back and share again. Can you see now?
Yet to visible. Yeah, it is visible. You can go to.
Okay, maybe I wouldn't do full screen. Maybe that's why it's getting thing. So yeah, so basically I lived in all these countries. I worked for the United Nations. I ran programs that served between 2 to 6 million people in each country on average. And interestingly, half the people we served were farmers. So we had an interesting insight into farmers and the issues. And as both Dr. Balasubramani and Dr. Chandrasekhar said, globally, around 25 to 30% of the emissions are from agriculture. Agriculture needs to go, according to FAO, from 6 to 9 billion tons in terms of production to meet population needs and protein needs. We need to do agriculture differently. We need to do agriculture in a climate smart manner. And there are wonderful programs in India. What I'm hoping to cover with my presentation is, can carbon finance maybe help solve a small part of that very large transition we need to make for climate finance. So just to give you a sense of the carbon markets, essentially around 75% of the corporates have announced net zero goals, and the demand for voluntary carbon credits to meet those goals is going up. They expect the market to be around $10 to $25 billion by 2030, the size of the voluntary market. On the other side, the corporates today and in the next 7-10 years demand what is called nature-based solutions, which are the soil carbon forestry, and the supply is drying up. So it's a bit of an appropriate time to design these projects because the demand is there, the supply is not there. And obviously when you have high demand, low supply, you have an increasing credit price. Due to lack of time, I won't go into this, and I think we can share the presentation. This gives you a set of key players that are in the market today. And as I told you, the voluntary market is expected to reach about 1 billion tons of carbon needed by 2030 and about $10 to $25 billion in value. The net zero commitments, as I said, from the companies are the biggest driver. So almost today, almost 60 to 70% of the demand is from voluntary markets. But by 2030, they expect compliance markets to demand carbon offsets. Japan, where I live, doesn't have a compliance market, but they plan to have a compliance market, and there could be around 60 to 100 million tons per year of offset demand from the Japanese compliance market once it's set up. EU, California, Korea, China, at some point the rules will change to allow more international offsets, and Indian smallholder farmers can be a beneficiary of that change. As I told you, that there is a significant shortage of high quality credits, essentially good, well-disciplined, executed projects in agriculture. So there is a potential to do so, and high quality credits obviously have a higher price, so more benefit to the farmers. And again, as you can see, because of this, the prices are very high in 2021 and expected to go much higher this year. And nature-based credits specifically are also shooting up. Sustainable agriculture, based on the World Bank report of last year, drew the highest prices in the market. On average, as you can see from this graph, but only 1% of all credits transacted were from agriculture. So you have a bit of a contradiction. Demand is high, price is high, but projects are low. So given this background, I'm going to try to extrapolate a little bit, but like I said, there are a lot more experts on this webinar, and I'm sure you have much better thoughts. As the director said, agriculture accounts for 20% of total emissions in India, about 400 million tons per year. 91% is from enteric fermentation, livestock, rice farming, and manure management. Burning crop residue, as many of you know, is a unique problem in some parts of the country. So obviously from these, you can also see where agriculture soil carbon could play a role. But as the demand is high, the price is high, why is the supply low? And I think many of you on this webinar know very well. Changing any farmer's practice is very difficult. Executing large projects, to make a project critical, you need 100,000 farmers. Aggregating 100,000 farmers with 1-2 acres each is very difficult, number two. And number three, carbon credit projects have a high upfront cost, and the profits come in year 2, 3, 4, 5. So there is also a risk from the investment perspective, right? So these are risks on the challenges that need to be overcome on the project design and validation side. On the validation side, there are questions around leakage, permanence, reversal of carbon credits. And then on the verification, methodologies for agriculture soil carbon are not fully developed yet, and there's only very limited methodologies that are approved. On the good side, as I said, there is high price for the carbon credits. India, especially thanks to Manage and others, has lots of talent. There is in-country expertise, government policy is in favor, and there's potential to save up to 2 tons per farmer. There was a paper done by ICRIER that showed that agriculture soil carbon potential in India could be as high as 178 million tons per year. Obviously, all of this may not find a market, or all of this may not be capable of being developed. But even if we develop 10-20% of it, we're talking about 30 to 40 million tons a year, which will benefit around 15 to 20 million farmers. Thanks to Syngenta Foundation and Agoro, we're designing a project in India with 100,000 growers. We're looking at some very basic climate smart practices like balanced fertilization, integrated nutrient management, efficient water management, moving slowly to slightly more advanced like no-till farming, cover crops, etc. And we hope to save around 200,000 tons when the project is fully operational, about 2.5 years. But we also benefit from a lot of local experts from these two foundations that have been involved in agriculture for decades in India. So just to give you a sense of an actual project that's being designed. Basically, the way we leverage carbon finance could have a significant impact on farmers' income. And more importantly, also reduce climate change risks. So the way we do it, we could really make a big difference. So to give you an example, if you use carbon finance as a loan guarantee, then you could $10 worth of carbon finance could unlock $100 worth of financing. So there's ways to intelligently use carbon finance to leverage 5x, 10x benefits for the smallholder farmers. And just to finish off, as a suggested next step, start existing approved methodologies. There are 2 or 3 that allow for 5 or 6 practices. We can start with those. Start with what organized farmers, 100,000, 500,000, expand to 1 million farmers in 12 to 18 months. These are things that we are doing with very good partners in India and will continue doing. I think given manages very large reach and global partnerships, it would also be very important to work on what I call ecosystem development and coming up with new methodologies. And down the road in 6, 12, 18 months, I also can visualize something around manage and Indian expertise being used for agriculture soil carbon in other emerging markets. So there's lots of potential to sort of think through with all of you on next steps. Thank you very much again for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. I'm very excited by this topic. We're happy to sort of invest our own capital to get it going. And we look forward to working with many of you who are on the webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mack, for giving a holistic view about the global perspective on carbon trading, and a very interesting point you have narrated. So there is a quality credit which has good rate. Sustainable agriculture is fetching good rate, but still the percentage of trading is very, very less. So a lot of challenges, as you suggested. So we need to train the farmer and aggregate the farmer, and some kind of massive work has to be done to accrue the benefit to the farmer as well as for the environment. And also one more point you narrated is researchers have to work on methodologies to assess the globally accepted standard. So that is very, very important. Thank you very much, Ansari.
Thank you again for the opportunity.
Yeah. So now I request Dr. Venkatachalam Anbumulli to make a presentation of carbon market and financial mechanism for sustainable agriculture in Asia. Dr. Anbumulli is the Director of Research, Strategy and Innovations at the Economic Research Institute for Association of Southeast Asian Nation and East Asia from Indonesia. And before joining IRI, he worked in many organizations such as Asian Development Bank Institute, University of Tokyo, Institute for Global Environmental Strategies, Pacific Consultants International, Tokyo, and various capacities. And he has published several books, authored numerous research articles, and produced many project reports on resource management policies, low carbon infrastructure design, and private sector participation in green growth. Dr. Anbumulli was invited as a member of the G20 task force for green financing, Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation, expert panel on cluster circular economy, and the Asian Eminent Person Committee Committee on Climate Resilient Growth. With this small introduction, I extend once again welcome to Dr. Venkatachalam Anbumali. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Balasubramaniam and my colleagues. It is my great pleasure to be with you this afternoon. My presentation, the following Max, talking about more about the carbon markets and the financial mechanisms that support the sustainable agriculture. Yes, DG Chandrasekhara mentioned, and when we think about this climate change mainstreaming, which is integrating this climate change adaptation and the mitigation into that sectoral planning, and we do have 3 gaps, and that need a lot of experimentation and innovations. The first gap is the knowledge. I think we don't have that kind of knowledge to support this mainstreaming. And second thing is the decision-making capacity, where manage is basically contributing greatly at the national level. And but mobilizing the sufficient finance is very critical for the countries if they go for the mainstreaming. That is where I wanted to focus the next 15 minutes. And first explaining or exploring what are the role for this agriculture in meeting these net zero targets. We know that is the net zero targets are there, and but it is not easy. And second thing is then we need to look into this region. I think there are some countries and some sectors they are relatively moving faster and successfully, and so we can look for some of these hints for the success in this carbon markets, emerging carbon markets. And the third thing I would like to see what in the case of financing and the carbon financing and the financing the climate change mitigation, and what are the missing elements in the context of India. To go to the, sorry, I have difficulty moving to the next one. Okay, and if you look into this climate change, and I have a difficult.
So is it difficult in moving, sir?
Yes.
Think, so just scroll down because it is in a PDF maybe. Can you scroll down?
Okay, let us move on. Maybe start now. Okay. Can you see it now? Yes, it is moving. And one thing that the science and the economics is very clear, and this IPCC 6th assessment report says that is to meet this 1.5 degrees centigrade, we need 1.6 trillion to 3.8 trillion at the global level. And if you look into this flows, only around 560 million on average is available. So there is a huge gap between these flows and as well as these needs. And in spite of these things, about 50 countries have now has already reached this carbon peak, and accounting for about 36% of the global carbon emissions. But if you look into this region, I think Dr. Balasubramanian mentioned about COP26, and where there is most of the countries agreed for this net zero targets. The net zero target is it is a little bit complex, and I think here we are not looking for a complete elimination or complete reduction of the emissions, but we also know that is by gradually moving, we may not mitigate all these emissions. So some part of that emission has to be stored. And that is a part of this net zero story. And here there is an increased role for this agriculture. And this agriculture could be a permanent place for storing that extra carbon that cannot be mitigated. That's why that is India has promised as a net zero target in the 2070, and based on with the confidence that is we will be reaching it. And these are the not aspirational goals. These are the targets that is set. I think in the future it will be binding. And here you can see there is no country in the globe has reached that kind of first three ranks. But India stands in the sense of climate change performance about 10. It has been gradually moved from in the last 10 years. And so that gives a hope for going for the net zero, and it motivated. And but if you look into this agriculture sector, and which constitute about 20% of the emissions, out of 11 gigatons of emissions, and most of them are coming from the methane. This is a kind of short-living greenhouse gas. I think that is where difficulty comes in. And so second one comes, this is how we are using that manures and also the fertilizer production. And this contributed to the second segment. And the third one is this land conversion from the agriculture to the forestry, and other things. For example, managing this water management systems are the residual emissions. But the story here is that here we have a large potential for reduce it. Maybe probably 80% of that we can achieve it. By 2070, some residual carbon will be remaining. So that means there need to be change in the agriculture practices, and focusing on this methane and the nitrogen emissions that is coming from this livestock sector, and the fertilizer production and the biomass. So this is a story, and for the net zero economy, and the main base is the Paris Climate Agreement that is reached in 2030. And at IRIA, Economic Research Institute, we estimated how much is the cost that is required for India to meet. And it says there is about by 2030 it will cost. It was a calculation from the 2016 to 2030. It says we need about 0.3% of this GDP. And if the target is 2 degrees centigrade, which is more ambitious, or 1.5 degrees, it will be more than 1 to 2% of the GDP. But with the innovations, with the policy innovations, for example, going for the carbon trading, and instituting these mechanisms that facilitate the trade within the country and across the country, we can reduce these emissions. With the net cost maybe less. How this net cost can be negative. And this comes from the three pathways. One is that effectiveness, what type of technologies we use. Second thing is the efficiency and the equity. That is how this distributional effects, when we introduce these carbon trading systems, how it will affect, and which sector has the large potential. And the third important key is co-benefits. So we are not only looking for these carbon reductions, how this carbon sequestration, for example, take this carbon mitigation pathways, will help the farmers and also will help the communities. So that is the kind of a core benefit. If you combine this together, there is an essential, that is, you will find a net cost. I think that is the storyline, and this is, we projected it for it. And for example, with the INDC, and with by 2050, I think that the net cost can be zero. So then, if you look at it, is what are the low-hanging fruits? What are the agriculture practices which has the high emission potential? And here we found basically 4 cluster of, or 5 cluster of agriculture practices, which has been, there is a lot of literature that is available and to substantiate it. And these are the low-hanging fruits. that start from this improved agronomic practices that could range from the use of the cover crops and to the legumes in the crop rotation. Basically, it is a kind of carbon sequestration or the carbon capturing. And the second area is the integrated nutrient management, where we see that is integrate this animal manure has replaced this chemical fertilizer. And third one is this no-tillage practices. Many of you know about it. So the important point from here is, and if you look into this right-hand side, and it shows the different options. That is, what is the potential in terms of the CO2 emission reductions? So for example, replacement of all the diesel irrigation pumps into a solar-driven pump gives a kind of an opportunity of nearly 12 million tons of carbon emission reductions. And at the same time, if you go for the cold storage, if you improve that cold supply chains, then it has the potential of about 1 million tons of carbon emissions. So this kind of very subsector level estimates are much most needed to get into the next step. Another important step or another important parameter that is we need to look into is co-benefits. I think we know that it is a kind of case for the Europe, and here we see that is the kind of agroforestry or this soil health improvement has the potential, for example, in the range of 0.5 to 7 megatons of carbon dioxide. But what is more important is what are the benefits, and for example, this climate change mitigation targets or these practices could be, for example, from the perspective of the farmers, it could improve. It could be kind of a de-risking their options to improve the soil productivity, and also for the social, for the community, it is for the improved soil retention and the soil health and the biodiversity. In the case of manure, and it is a kind of a decreased runoffs and also low input cost for the farmers. So this is a more important point. These options, when it is married together with this technology and the finance, what type of benefits it produces at the end of the day. And if you look into the markets, and there are very different, this is the emerging marketing picture. I think here we cannot say that is the more perfect market system is available. These are emerging up. And for example, China is doing in the industrial sector, and in India, patent in the performance evaluation, the transfer system that exists in the industrial sector. But one example that is we can look into this at the economy wide is New Zealand. I think New Zealand is still an agrarian country, and where most of this dairy production and the meat production happens. And here they could be able to cover 90% of their sectoral emissions under the trading system. And here with the carbon pricing of about $20, which is relatively high when coming to these OECD countries. So, so here we need to look into that, and what could be kind of a system that is we can learn from this New Zealand emission trading system as applicable to India is a fact. And also there is China. Now they are thinking about the first bond has been issued in China. And the second thing is it is at the national level. What I told is about the national level, but if you look into the international level, there is imbalances. There is this clean development mechanism. Basically, it facilitates this carbon credit to be transferred to the advanced countries in return for their technology and the finance. And here, if you look into this region, and China is leading it in the carbon, the CDM projects, and India, it is about 18.5%. But this Himachal Pradesh, this deforestation and the watershed project is one of the best example. It is considered to be one of the biggest one with this 200 million fund that has been provided by biocarbon fund. It is initiated by the Spain, but is administered by the World Bank, and it is a kind of a low interest loan and administered for the World Bank with a 0.75%. And this kind of mechanism, these international mechanisms could be looked into it. For example, Japan has this bilateral offset program, and now that they are thinking about including the agriculture sector. And also there are some international funding sections available. For example, Asian Development Bank that is based in Manila, where India is also member, and they have been allocated in the last 3 years about 640 million for the forest investment program, and some of the climate resilience program that fit into the mitigation. They look into the co-benefit. It is about 1.3 billion has been committed for the next 5 years. But if you look into this sector, that is how much this financing has been distributed. One is most of them are going for the livestock management, and another is from this waste from the agriculture, converting the agricultural waste into energy farm, bioenergy farm, which is easy to measure in terms of the CO2. And also there is a energy food biomass waste. And these are the 3 dominant sectors where most of this international funding is going on. Another thing that is developing in the very recently in the last 5 years is the green bond markets, and which has been moving here. Basically, these resources are developed from the investors for the cost of investment. And here, if you look into this, Indonesia, basically, this is one of the leaders, and here their first green bond for this deforestation and the agriculture manager has been issued in the about 4 years back, and some of these agriculture waste projects also been targeted for these green bonds, where this financing is coming from the private sector. So if you look into these 3 cases of the carbon markets, and then international financing mechanisms, and third one is the bond markets, most important thing is this certification. There is the MRV, monitoring, reporting, and verification system. So if before this project has been instituted, we will see there is how much this particular agricultural activities emitting these carbons. By introduction of these technologies and are the management practices, how much it will be reduced. So this need a kind of a very scientific assessment, which has to be standardized and harmonized with these local requirements. Then this financial flows happens. This is the basic principle, and here, as mentioned by Mac, and there are certain difficulties. There are barriers. That barriers this project need to see there is this additionality. That means it is not a kind of a normal practice we are doing by introducing these technologies or by introducing these practices. How much additional carbon reductions can be happen? And second thing is permanence. It is not a kind of a 1 or 2 year reduction we are looking for. It is a kind of permanent reduction. We are changing we are transforming the systems. I think the second is the permanence, and third one is to avoid the leakages. That is the how this indirect emissions. So there are several examples. Take the case of bioenergy, and the whole. If you take the life cycle analysis, some bioenergy project may result in more emissions rather than the energy production. That is the clean energy production. So these are some of the difficulties, and also we need to take into consideration practicality. It will take, if you apply for the project, and it will take about nearly 3 to 4 years to get the funds, and then really that is returns comes in, and this practicality had to be considered. And this is my last slide, and see that is what is the financing landscape, and here we have a very different players. And what mentioned about these international players, and also we have the national players like NABARD, and which has been pioneering with several innovations, and also public funds that is available with the central government. And what is missing in this one is the private sector and the small scale farmers. The private sector, I think so far, if you look into the landscape, the first 2 comes from the international funds, which is a kind of a leveraging role for these public funds. Second is the domestic government funds. Third one is the private funds. Given there is a kind of 20% reduction that we need to have it by 2070, we need to increase the role for the private sector. And second thing is missing is, so far these mechanisms worked well for the large farmers. So how we can link these investors, private sectors, and the small scale land farmers? This is an important thing where we need much more innovations, experimentations. And here at area, we conducted what are the difficulties these institutional investors face in terms of the low carbon financing. And here we find there are three type of barriers. One is the policy barriers. See, for example, in the case of India and the national policies, national agriculture policies, and the domestic or the state level policies may not be in a coherent way or in an integrated way. There exists a conflict. Second thing is the institutional mechanisms. For example, there is a high collateral requirement for the private sectors. There is a risk. And NABARD also found there is several projects that is they are good in the climate change mitigation, but they are not ready for the projects and for lending. So that need an institutional innovations on the de-risking mechanisms. Third one is there so the market structure. For example, who is going to take care of this technology advancement risk? It is not going to be a private sector, but some mechanisms should be shared. So I'm going to complete with this. This is my last slide, and so with the three take-home messages. One is agriculture sector plays a key role in the case of India in meeting that net emission targets. Without agriculture sector taking the actions, the 2070 targets cannot be reached, and there will be difficulties. And second thing is the carbon markets and the international financial institutions can play an instrumental, but only as a leveraging role. But most of these actions has to be coming from the national sources. And third one is in the landscape, the global level, at the regional level, at the national level, there are two missing points. One is that is large institutional investors and the small scale agricultures. And here we need much effort is needed to stimulate this enhanced collaboration between the two players. I stop here, and once again, thank you very much for giving this opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for excellent presentation. And it is very clear from your presentation that agriculture has a huge potential, very low-hanging fruits now for mitigating climate change. Without agriculture, we cannot achieve the 2070 goal. And also, it will yield to developmental co-benefits for both farmer, ecology, and everything. And there is a scope to learn from evolving carbon market in Asia and learn from that and adopt the best practices in India, because we are weak in that area now. And you mentioned three important areas, challenges, either policy or institutional and market related challenges, which are very important, which need to be addressed while financing small scale agriculture project. Thank you so much for once again for nice presentation. Thank you. Now I request Mr. CSR Murthy, Chief General Manager, NABARD, to make a presentation on NABARD's role in spearheading carbon sequestration project in agriculture and allied sector. I think before that, I'm very happy to introduce Mr. Murthy. He is Chief General Manager looking after Farm Sector Development Department in National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development. And he is a certified associate of Indian Institute of Banking and Finance in Project Finance. He was trained on risk management at Asian Institute of Management, Philippines. He has worked with United Nations Industrial Development Organization. He was also engaged with Food and Agriculture Organization on credit issues in organic agriculture. He has traveled widely to share his expertise and experience with the Asia Pacific Rural and Agriculture Credit Association, GIZ, and Israel on high-tech agriculture. Okay, he has been involved in promoting climate smart agriculture. So with this small introduction, I request Mr. Murthy to take over.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Chandrasekhar ji, Dr. Balasubramanian ji, my eminent fellow panelists and participants of this webinar. Thanks a lot for the invite, and I've been greatly benefited by the presentations made by my earlier panelists. So my presentation would be basically talks about not on the carbon finance, carbon market per se, because we have been understanding now carbon market is quite upbeat. There's going to be a very good premiums likely to during a short or medium term, both from the compliance market side as well as from the voluntary market side. The kind of a figure which we have recently heard yesterday was the figure was quoted was $17 per metric ton of carbon. That was a figure quoted by Bayer. And of course, these figures vary across regions and across buyers and so on and so forth. So therefore, again, renewable is there. We are going to work upon. I'm going to briefly present it what exactly we are doing it, what kind of a how we are financing, how we are in this financing side basically. We talk about NABARD's footprint. The purpose of this what is known development the kind of a balance sheets which are there. We got a pan-India presence, rural partnership. The most important POs are our own POs promoted by NABARD, about 4,500 plus. Plus Government of India mandate is there to promote other 4,000 POs, and we have a pan-India presence. The thing is this is enabled us to get the accreditation from the international multilateral agencies like GCF and AFPs. So this is how the strength is. So we have a balanced portfolio there, both on the credit side, on the infra side, developmental supervision, so on and so forth. Now, probably we are the only institution which can play a bigger role, be it in an adaptation side or on a mitigation side, across the spectra, across the nodes in the value chain, agri value chain. So that's how it is help us. Next, please. Next, please. There are the challenges which are known to you, known to everyone. I will repeat it. Please, next one is. This is the one thing. Now, question is this: the money is limited. So therefore, we wanted to ration out at least our funding part side is concerned. So therefore, recently, the climate vulnerability report is there, where it highlights that the eastern region is going to be the one which is the most vulnerable states. Incidentally, we are guided by the Reserve Bank of India regulations also. RBI also pointed out that mostly eastern regions are the starved, credit deficient states as well. Now, if you marry both unholy kind of parameters, vulnerability plus credit starvation, so therefore our priority would be in this region. Our immediate priority would be that we wanted to evolve a kind of a credit products, precise credit products for funding by NBFCs, because we wanted to scale up. Of course, we need to have the help of our banks, but ultimately NBFCs are also play a bigger role to scale up our both adaptation side, mitigation side measures. This is how we are prioritization. We are doing it with this kind of a report given by the Government of India. Next slide, please. There are the emissions which already been talked about it. Only one thing is this now we want to say about rice. We already worked on the SRI side. Now probably now there are different like direct seeded rices also there. We are going to incorporate all the best practices to reduce the emissions in our programs and practices. Paddy, we are going to do it in a kind of a programmatic mode India cases. We have done already doing a piloting in Punjab. Now we are getting a good results, and probably this season we are going to see a bigger picture out of it from our pilots, especially on the paddy side. There are the broad level side. We have a strong right from day one, almost a 3 decade long work experience in enhanced sphere. What is what shared? Then there are the flagship programs, development program. Then several kind of pan-India based farm-based programs are there. It's I'm talking about only farm-based since I'm representing a farm sector development department. We got other several departments also, both working on off-farm and other areas as well. Then climate change, I'm going to talk about it. Then we got a innovative financing models also have been done, which is a routine kind of a grant models. We have done different kind of models with a different kind of models, blended financing models, like a different kind of a debt, credit, debt, equity ratios, with several kind of models which we have done. And the commercial mode also said there, NIDA is there, which mostly they do on the commercial mode. I think somebody was talking about that and about we would like to, we are much more in the on the commercial segment, on the emission, on the mitigation side, solar side, wind side, then power side, distributions and everything we are there. We are playing a bigger role in that picture. Of course, then agriculture practice, organic is all very soft side elements also there. Now the broad segments, next slide is there, next slide. The question is, it is again, it's a low cost based nature based solution. The important point in this is how we package it. Not only a kind of giving assistance to orchards, both off farm, on farm, both are integrated. the little conservation, resources, training and capacity, communities, health, women empowerment, everything per family, we are going to get about close to 65 or 70,000 rupees per family. So the question is, design is more important. The kind of plants which you planted across, if you take it as a portfolio wise, there are 27 million plants that now probably this sequestration potential, this number, of course, it is a very loose kind of a numbers subject to technical varieties, 57 million tons. Now we are going to do this kind of a study. We already have the mechanism to track where are those plants, where are those. Probably we'll bundle all of our plants for bundle kind of a pooled kind of a carbon financing, so that it will give a bigger kind of a numbers that we can become tradable in the national and international carbon markets. That's how it is intent is, and of course we pass the benefits to the our beneficiaries. Then what about the UPNR program? Both credit side, debit side. There are several, you name it. There are several models which have been tried out successfully. It's a basically great kind of a program. Both the demand side management, then SRA kind of a management, then you got the biomass kind of a thing, then agroforestry. The agroforestry of 6-7 phases running into, or each phase running into 4 years with the tribals. Like there are several kinds such kind of initiatives. I think is all-inclusive. This is also one kind of a thing which is available under portfolio, which we can able to eventually we can able to leverage for a carbon finance is one. This is one example from the Koraput. One experience of that one yesterday years. We did all this experimentation. CDM also we got it, but ultimately that time the prices were not great. It did not give any kind of a commercial benefit. Probably with this kind of a figures promising market which is now evolving it, that's indeed is evolving it. Probably the kind of a numbers which we can trade it by pooling of our assets. We are again we are trying this model now again with our portfolio of assets which we have created through our partners. Next one is then again a classical watershed program. The important point is this: it's not a question of a watershed and this thing. What I was telling, the how we evolve a pure core digging kind of a project. I mean, sorry to use it a very loose words. It's a pure soil water conservation measures, engineering measures. We moved on to now the climate lens. We put it when that's through KFW assistance. We moved on. Then the climate lens now we integrated, mainstreamed it, and now that is how we are looking at. The thing is this: when we are doing this one, then when a big challenge comes from outside, we need to demystify whatever our scientists which are talking about the kind of languages, the kind of terminologies, and we have our job is to take it to the community and designing it, programming it, and put it in simple terms where communities can understand, partners can understand. This is where challenge lies. I think we got a very rich experience thanks to our association with the KFW, with the Indo-Germans, then SDC cooperation with our partners. This is how it is. Now, ultimately, now we are looking at the holistic program, that the agroecology, that what our Honorable Prime Minister was also talking about, natural farming and FAO's advocacy. Agroecology by default, by it's a kind of a self-actualized kind of a program for the climate resilience point of view. This is how we are heading it right now. Probably we are going up a pilots also. Similarly, we are working on the soil with the GAZ also. 150,000 in MP and Maharashtra. What it talks about the carbon cycle, SOCs, then biogas, that entire compost biogas value we are working on the area. More on the carbon is the soil side, fertility side. That is how we are working in 2 states with the GAZ. Next one is that is a true core funding portfolio. Our funding portfolio is about climate portfolio is about 1,800 crores. Then we got we are accredited agency by Adaptation Fund. Then our own government National Adaptation Fund for climate change is given. It's a fund constituted at the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change. Then we are a direct access entity for the GCF also. The kind of a portfolio we got roughly 40 projects, about 1,008 crores. Still, we are working upon it. Probably this portfolio we would like to increase it. A different kind of portfolio, both the grant model and the credit models are there under this portfolio. Next slide, please. There are the areas which have been already been you talk it. All agriculture, forestry, livelihoods, biodiversity, energy, mitigation, adaptation. All aspects have been covered under our portfolio. It's a kind of a more leaning towards the adaptation side, less on the mitigation side. Mitigation anyway, it's the private sector investments. For example, solar. NCC, the 30 projects. The beauty of these projects are all state governments. Please understand, they are the where is the first time state government, different departments, state governments have to work together for the adaptation state project. Indeed, it is a kind of a credible performance under NFCC project. We got a outstanding, for example, like a Sikkim, where we got a database from the villages. What is mapped to the village level. Probably we can go such a fine village level programs. We can do it. There are several innovations have come up from programs. Next one is few things which are captured. I'm just talking about Manipur. It's a kind of a eco villages. These are very positive eco villages from several initiatives. Next one is these are the initiatives. Then from the adaptation fund, we got several projects are there. For example, the kind of for example, I'm just giving an example of from Andhra. Again, it's implemented by Swaminathan Foundation. It's a coastal region. This project now is going to be implemented in large scale in Odisha and West Bengal. Integrated mangrove fish farming system also is quite been successful, funded under the projects. Next one again, it's a Uttarakhand, hilly region, Mount Himalayan region. Then again, the things are different. Then again, we have taken up several initiatives under Uttarakhand project. Next one is the GCF. We got two projects have been sanctioned. One thing on the mitigation side for the Tata Clean Tech is there. So the rooftop solar plants. Then again, we got a tank moderation and also solar pump set. So we are using it at Odisha project just after the agreements everything just under the implementation stage. Now, as NAE, we look forward to have a coordination, collaboration. We look forward to have ideas and how to we take forward our India's agenda. Other it's not NABARD's agenda because all these things would be counted for the India's performance reports in the climate change initiatives. We look forward for the next one is the lesson 10 is all bottom approach and a lot of coordination is required, demystification is required. Things have to be technical recommendation have to be fine-tuned to the field level requirements. A lot of flexibility is there, project designs and everything. Next one is then ESG component is very much required. Of course, it's become a part of our policy as the policy of our client private entities which we are financing it also. Next one is there are the mitigation efforts. All our efforts. There are examples. Then being a bank, one good thing is that whatever the best practices we evolved in, probably we are in a position to able to upscale to that national level. But the advantage being a apex level development financing institution. That's all we can say at present. Thanks a lot for this opportunity. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for nice presentation and briefing various activities and projects undertaken by NABARD. Almost NABARD has entered into all areas, agroforestry, watershed, and whatever adaptation project, and made a good impact. And also, these learnings will be useful for any other developmental organization for taking forward further. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Now I request Mr. Vijay Vardhan to make a presentation on ITC's Climate Smart Agriculture Program to enhance carbon sequestration and greenhouse gas emission reduction. And Mr. Vijay has over 23 years of experience in the development sector with expertise on sustainable agriculture, water stewardship, natural resource management, and rural development. And he is currently a general manager in ITC Social Investment Program and has spearheaded ITC's community development program for over 18 years across ITC's catchment and other backward districts of country. And before joining ITC, Mr. Vijay worked in AP State in a borewell irrigation project supported by Netherlands government. And he also participated and shared his expertise in various national and international forums, including UN Conference on Biodiversity, World Water Forum, workshop organized by WWF, and International Union on Conservation of Nature, Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry, and Confederation of Indian Industry, and UN Global Impact Network India, and other academic institutes, including IIMs. So with this small introduction, I extend a warm welcome to Mr. Vijay once again. And over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Balasubramanian. Is my presentation visible? I have loaded it. Is it not?
Yes, sir. Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is visible now.
It is visible. Okay, thank you. So I thank Dr. Chandrasekhara, the Managing Director, and Dr. Balasubramanian for this opportunity. The first two speakers had very in detail explained the carbon markets and the emerging trends in the area. And NABARD, with its vast experience across country, has explained what it has already done and on a very large scale. So I am coming from a corporate, so it will be a bit different in the what the presentation will handle. What I want to start itself explain is that I am not talking about carbon market at this stage, but the activities which have potential for the carbon market, into which we are already into. So how did we do and what did we do? So definitely we will take help of the other panelists and of course manage. So it's a learning experience also for us, so that we also see that the farmer gets the additional advantage of carbon credit sale also. So that particular area we are not yet into. So we will learn that, but we have done the work which actually can get farmers the sale related income. That is what I wanted to explain. So ITC is climate smart agriculture. Before getting into it, very quickly about ITC. ITC Limited is a corporate, more than 100-year-old Indian corporate, and we are a multifaceted business company. We are into many businesses, and we have very strong thrust, and we have believed and we have achieved milestones of being carbon and water and solid waste recycling positive status for more than a decade, and we continue to be so. So this also explains that even before the commitments or the talk about the being nature positive, carbon positive, we actually 20 years back decided to get into this, and we have achieved that through our operations, both within compound and outside the fence. So when we look at the challenges which the communities and other stakeholders in our catchment space, so one is like in our agri value chains, wherever our agri businesses operate. So mostly they are rain-fed areas or at least moisture stressed, even if there is other irrigation source. And climate change, of course, is a aspect which is actually adding to all the existing problems. And it's small and marginal farmers dominated agriculture across India and also in our catchments. It's mostly the land parcels are shrinking, not going up by any way. And we are also present in most backward areas across country due to our operations. So we want to see that all these problems of the stakeholders are also attended along with our business. This is also the way we have decided our business process 2 decades back, 2.5 decades back. So we called it triple bottom line performance, and we started reporting on it. Now, of course, many corporates do across country and across the globe. So coming to the climate smart agriculture program. So this program broadly or largely, it actually touches upon these areas. One is natural resources management, which is also now again, there are many words which keep coming up, terminologies over a period of time in development sector and global climate change related scenarios. So regenerative agriculture is something which is being talked a lot now, but this is what through natural resource management we have aimed at and we have been doing since a long time. And the three major resources for agriculture we identified and we work for replenishing, reviving is water, soil and biodiversity. Then in biodiversity, we have also decided that it should not be a standalone activity. It should be about reviving the ecosystem services. So the services which nature provides, like hydrological regulation, pollinators, predators on pests, all these services which nature provides, we should actually work for reviving those ecosystem services. Then promoting the practices which reduce greenhouse gas emissions. But the first and foremost is they are supposed to benefit farmers. farmers should see a benefit in economical terms. And of course, all those activities which we promote are climate smart, means they reduce the GHG emission or at least sequester the releases. And additionally, we have embarked upon a program of dedicated climate change resilient villages. We call it as CSVs, climate smart villages. So these all the activities what we do, we have brought under this framework of climate smart village framework in partnership with one of our knowledge partner. And this program is also going on. So all these are the ones which come under the ITC's climate smart agri program. So water, one of the major resource, and our work also had been majorly on this. We started with supply side water harvesting, but we also have equally focused upon the demand side of late, because that is an area without which we can never have water positive watersheds. Means no watershed will be having a positive water balance if demand is not balanced. So while we have done up to 43 million cubic meters in all these years, but the demand management has turned out to be having a high potential, and it actually ticks against many checks, like it saves cost, it improves productivity, it saves water, plus it is also a climate smart practice because GHG emissions are also reduced. So demand management that way is a major activity, and we are, as on date, we are almost working in 15 crops in this area. And all this work, apart from execution, we also have knowledge partnerships, mainly with ICR and many international agricultural institutes. So this activity is going on, and last year, means in 1 year, we could save 200 million cubic meter through water use efficiency. This year we are almost at 400, so that is yet to be reported this year's work. The second is biodiversity. So as I mentioned, biodiversity we look at as part and parcel of the overall agriculture development, not as a standalone activity. So we work for conserving commons, protecting forest by reducing pressures on forest, which is by promoting trees in the fringe areas, so that people don't go to forest for wood, fuel, and other sources, other requirements. So this is another second natural resource. We work extensively on this. And then what we have aimed at is, while we promote the practices and while we do water everything, but climate change is a very complicated issue that is coming up, so there need to be a dedicated program for this. So we partnered with CGIAR, their climate change and food security program, which they call as CCAFS. So through this program, the idea was to actually promote climate smart villages. So what is done is, for a local agroecological zone, climate risk assessment is done. Then a toolkit is prepared as to for the climate emerging climate risk or the already existing climate risk. So what are the practices that are to be adopted to minimize or to overcome the climate change related problem? So that is the toolkit preparation, and then actually roll out the toolkit by demonstrating and by working with government. So we are currently at around 2,700 villages, but we'll take it to all our villages across country. And we aim to reach out to 3 million acres in coming days. Just a minute. So the way how it happens is like the villages are plotted in a 4 quadrangle of low resilience, high resilience, low yield, high yield. So these LR, LY, LR, HY, these are the means the ones which are in yellow color. These are the quadrangles. So initially villages are plotted, and as the activity is rolled out, we keep measuring the movement. So if we can see in a 3-year period, so the villages mean there were 5 villages in the initial stage in the low resilience and low yield, which actually only 2 were left out towards the end of 2019. So this is how in a structured way villages are measured, and we see that they are becoming climate smart in various aspects. And I will touch upon 4 major climate smart agri practices we have done. 4 major means while we do many. So one is direct seeding of rice. We reached out to around 70,000 acres last year. This year we will do more. Across country we are doing this. And the major benefit of this for farmer is actually cost reduction. That is why farmer has adopted this, and not because of any other aspect actually, because cost reduction is a major attraction. And then followed by yield improvement, which is a proven fact, and it was explained in the earlier speaker's presentation also. The second is wheat zero tillage, which is conservation agriculture or no zero tillage or low tillage. So this again the major attraction is cost reduction followed by yield improvement. Soybean, there is a climate resilient practice, broadbed furrow, which is a tool both for flood and for drought. Again, in 70,000 acres, we have promoted this, so mainly in the states of Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, and Rajasthan. And sugarcane is another crop where we have initiated water use efficiency, and these are the also turned out to be the climate resilient practices because of the while water is saved, so they can actually withstand the drought season or the low rainfall seasons well. So this again, we could reach out 30,000 acres. This is mainly in Maharashtra, a small area in UP. So 4 of the practices I have brought in. All the numbers quoted in terms of yield improvement and cost reduction and income improvement. All this what we do is we through our knowledge partners we get studies done, and then those numbers are what we actually then multiply across the country. So visually, like zero tillage, we can see the plantation in the paddy stubble. Without means in conventional case, farmer would have had 2 to 3 tillages, but in this case it's only 1 tillage after paddy direct sowing. And direct seeding of rice, we all know it is direct seeding without nursery. So the advantages farmers are now picking up. So the main focus or the main requirement now is actually taking knowledge to farmer, demonstrate and clearing their doubts in the first 2 to 3 years. Then the activity gets internalized and farmers will actually continue on their own. To which, when we actually add the benefit of the carbon credit sale, there will be a super success. That's what we feel. Of course, we have to add the carbon credit sale part, but we could actually reach out to larger area because we could show the impact to farmers and they got convinced and they adopted on their own. So soybean, the last photo, if we see in the top row, right side one. So the first part is the BBF. The second plot is non-BBF, means the traditional thing, which actually gets damaged when there is heavy rain. So it's a clear-cut visible difference we can see. And sugarcane seedling plantation, it is like sugarcane stem is planted, sticks are planted. They call it set plantation. But instead of that, when we do seedling plantation, for 2 months the crop is in nursery. So there is a saving of 2 months of standing crops requirement in the main field. So water saving is there for 2 months. Plus followed by drip, it's a water saving come high yielding practice. One more the major thing we could do is we have done is a stubble burning avoidance in Kapurthala, where we have our factory. We work with farmers there. So last year we have targeted 1.09 lakh acres, of which 87%, means 95,000 acres, we could actually make farmers not burn. Again, here the only the way of messaging we have done was what is the benefit for farmer and not about environment, because the benefit when farmer had realized that it's about improving moisture and improving organic carbon and also reducing cost to certain extent. So when the benefit farmer had realized, then they actually had adopted this. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been possible. So again, here we could do that by convincing farmers on the advantages they have through the non-burning thing, and also by adopting conservation agriculture in wheat, means they won't burn the paddy stubble and they will sow wheat through happy seeder or zero tillage machines, so that the moisture and the organic carbon is conserved within the soil. So in the conclusion, I am reiterating the fact that climate smart agriculture is about improving farmer incomes, and improving the natural resource access by reducing, replenishing, and reviving the source, and at the same time building resilience to climate change. So we will definitely add the fourth one of getting the additional income to farmers through the carbon credit sale, which is what we have, or we are actually embarking upon now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vijay, for very interesting work your company is doing, and it is very interesting to know that your company is water, carbon, solid waste recycling positive for more than a decade. And the activities like water stewardship, biodiversity conservation, and climate smart villages, they are really, it is a good learning for other agribusiness companies also to take forward. And it is surprising to know even climate smart practices promoted in major crops like rice, soybean, wheat, and sugarcane. It has helped to save almost 60 million tons of carbon. It is really good intervention, and you are doing in a large scale. Thank you very much for coming and sharing your experiences. Thank you. Now I request Professor Dinesh K. Benby to make a presentation on carbon sequestration in relation to land use and management. As Professor is a renowned scientist and has contributed immensely towards advancing the science of soil, carbon, and nitrogen, soil health, sustainable food production. And Professor Benby has established a school of thought for study of soil organic carbon and its secondary benefits in realizing the soil functions and ecosystem services rendered by soils. In recognition of his contribution, he has awarded the prestigious National Professor Chair by the Indian Council of Agricultural Research, and he has honors. In terms of the global ranking of scientists. Professor Benby has been recognized among top 2% scientists by Stanford University, USA, and he has awarded Mercator Guest Professorship Germany and Alexander I Humboldt Fellowship Germany, European Fellowship UK, and Australian Government Commonwealth Fellowship, Fellow National Academy of Agricultural Science, and Fellow Indian Society of Soil Sciences, and Fellow Crop Improvement Society of India. So many other credit to his contribution. Sir, over to you, sir. Hello. Sir, is it audible?
Yeah. Is it fine?
Yeah, fine, sir. I think
Okay.
your presentation is not visible now.
Okay.
Earlier it was visible. Yeah, it is visible.
It's video. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I think we had fantastic discourse from our other speakers. I mean, something it was a really learning for me. But I would now take you a little bit away from those things which are really practical and something a bit of science of carbon sequestration. And I think I'll try to put two things in the right perspective, because we have been now talking about soil carbon sequestration or carbon sequestration in agri-food systems. But we have to really, first of all, talk about what is really this carbon sequestration we're talking about. I mean, if you look at the dictionary, go and search the word sequester. Sequester means to take away something till a dispute is settled. That means what, in the context of carbon, means we have to take away carbon from some place and possess it, that this is mine, doesn't belong to you. In this case, in another case, we have to take away carbon from the atmosphere, from our environment, bring it to the agriculture, to the vegetation, so that we say this carbon belongs here, doesn't belong to the environment. So in that way, we say we are meeting climate change. If you are adding more carbon from outside the soil and building it up, that is not sequestration. That is just building up carbon. So we have to be very careful while classifying improvement in carbon content of a soil or improvement of soil carbon concentration. We really sequestering carbon or just putting in carbon from outside? This is very, very key question. Now, many of our speakers, I will also talk about integrated nutrient management. We'll see how really, is it really beneficial in carbon sequestration or just building up carbon? We will discuss those things. Now, we have just now talked already about how much are global carbon emissions. And we are talking about anthropogenic, that is from our own activities, man-made activities. And now new estimates show it's 54 billion tons of carbon is sequestered. And so this is a new report says, so this is we say in terms of carbon dioxide equivalent. When we say carbon dioxide, that means we have taken care of oxides of nitrogen, nitrous oxide, methane, and chlorofluorocarbons. All those gases, greenhouse gases, they are converted to carbon dioxide equivalent. So that means we are emitting something about 54 billion tons, and about 1/3 or 31% from this is from agri-food systems, or precisely 17 billion tons are from agri-food systems. Now, when we say 70 billion of agri-food systems, now here we should be very careful that while apportioning this, we look into, is it really agri-food system per se on the farming aid level or on the supply chain? So if you see about out of this, about 7 billion tons are only from the agri-food system production. Rest 10 are from.
So sorry, sir. Can you put it in slide share mode?
Okay.
Yeah.
Just a minute. What has happened? Okay. Is it coming up now?
No, it is coming, sir. Slide share mode, if possible, you can put it. Otherwise, no problem.
Slide share.
Yeah, yes. Yes, sir. You click it.
Okay. You okay?
Yes, sir. Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
please.
Okay. Yeah. So that means now what I was saying, that we have almost 1/3 of the emissions which are coming from pre and post production systems. So that means I don't know what is this coming up right now. Anyhow, now basically when you look on, I said CO2 equivalent. When you look on this, about 21% is CO2 emissions, and 53% is methane, and about 78% is oxides of nitrogen. Why I want to give these numbers? Now we are only talking in terms of carbon dioxide emissions. We are only talking about carbon dioxide. Now, and then we say rice is the main culprit for methane emission. But if you look on the global data, methane concentration is not increasing in the environment, though rice is the main culprit. But we have to really see what is the hydrology of rice production, which ecology we are working with. For example, if you are talking about rice production, where water is standing all the time, methane is the main source of greenhouse gases from rice. But when, if you look on the states like Punjab and Haryana, where water is drained every 2-3 days, what is wetting and drying taking place, then methane is not the main source. Then it could be N2O, nitrous oxide. So we have to think of strategies. Why I'm saying minimize a particular gas emission, not only CO2. Is it moving?
It is not moving, sir. You can just press the arrow mark, sir. Right arrow.
Yeah, I did that.
Right arrow in the keyboard.
Yeah, I did everything.
Okay. Otherwise, you can minimize, sir. Minimize to not slides or. You can minimize to previous slide, the previous way, sir.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. It is not responding, in fact.
Yeah.
No, let me do it again. Okay, that's fine.
Yes, sir. Fine, fine. It's moving now.
Now, what are the sources of carbon dioxide emissions basically? Now, how this carbon basically, because we have talked about now no tillage, conservation agriculture, DSR. Now, first we have to really identify what are the sources of these emissions. First of all, this is very important key source. Now, many speakers have talked about solar energy and all those things. So, fossil fuels, basically petrol, diesel, whatsoever it is, and even electricity, which comes through coal production. So, they are all trying to add to the load of the carbon dioxide emissions from the farm operations. Then, very important, which we have not really so far talked about, the indirect use of embodied energy. That means we are using fertilizers, we are using a lot of pesticides, and those all they embody energy when they are being manufactured, and their transportation and the application mechanisms. They all are sources of emissions. So now we are not to see soil carbon per se. We have to see the sources which are bringing in carbon or which are being emitted to the environment. And then most importantly, more and more cultivation, as my colleagues just before I spoke, they talked about this, that there is a cultivation use charges. So all these add to the environmental footprint or the load of the carbon dioxide. But today what we are talking about, that agriculture as a moderator, which can offset carbon dioxide emissions. So how agriculture help? It can really offset the emissions which are taking place from the above sources. And it is also not only soil per se, the vegetation, which could be a sink for carbon. And carbon sequestration in soil and vegetation is the key to go for, let's say, climate mitigation. Now, what are the principle? What is the principle basically if you really practice? The principle is basically you bring in more carbon, increase carbon input, and reduce carbon output or reduce carbon losses. Because carbon at any time, the soil is a net balance of input and output. So more the input, less the output. So you increase carbon content. Then you increase the use efficiency. Just now, my colleague from ITC, they talk about water use efficiency. And you increase nutrient use efficiency, water use efficiency. They all add to the buildup of carbon and ultimately mitigating climate change or minimizing emissions. Now, what are the practices which we say are important for carbon input? Very important. First of all, is land use. How to select a land use. Now, when I say land use, just now many people talked about agroforestry is one way of doing it. That means more the perennial cropping you have. Basic principle is that lesser number of cuttings, more the perennial crops you have, more carbon is coming back to the environment, to the soil. So if you compare sugarcane with a, let's say, two system, maize wheat system, sugarcane has much higher potential of carbon sequestration than maize wheat and rice wheat. Now, very importantly, we have been saying rice is main methane emitter. We have now seen in Punjab, rice wheat system, in the last 25 years, I made an analysis of the whole of the Punjab data. In 25 years, the carbon content in Punjab soils have increased from 0.28% median value to 0.39%, and this is 38%. So this is basically the organic carbon content that we say soils are getting deteriorated because of rice wheat. Soil carbon content has increased. Why is that? Because the productivity of rice wheat system, which was about 5 to 6 tons per hectare, today we are harvesting 16 tons per hectare. So more the biomass we are harvesting, more the root biomass goes back to the soil. So more that biomass adds to the soil carbon content. That means rice wheat system is now leading to carbon sequestration rather than carbon elimination. Second point, rice is grown on almost for 1 month under standing water. That time anaerobic conditions, they try to really accumulate carbon. One of our speakers today talked about quality of carbon. Now, when we sequester carbon, we have to see whether this carbon which we are sequestering will go away the moment this practice is withdrawn, or will stay in the soil. So that means we have two types of carbon. One carbon which can go away immediately. We call it a labile carbon. Though we added carbon, we built up carbon, but it may not stay longer and moment the practice is withdrawn. Then second one is recalcitrant or resistant carbon. That would stay in the soil even if the practice is withdrawn for a long time. That is a protected carbon. Rice is such a crop which sequesters carbon, and that carbon is more recalcitrant. That stays in the soil for a longer time compared to if you grow maize wheat system or any other system. Similarly, sugarcane. Sugarcane has certain contents in the leaf which fall in the soil that carbon is again a resistant carbon. So we have to really very careful in choosing a land use. So this is very, very important what the land use we have to sequester carbon, and the quality of carbon which is sequestered is also matters. Then intensive cultivation. Many people feel that intensive cultivation has also a bad thing for soil. When we say intensive cropping, we have to say with the balanced use of nutrients, water, and energy. That should be intensive. That's the key factor. That not only intensification per se. Now, if we don't intensify, we will have to change land use. We have to bring more land under cultivation. So that means intensive cultivation has saved a lot of land, which would have been converted to create the same amount of food. So that means we have minimized emissions, which could have come from land use changes because of intensive agriculture. Now, Punjab has now today more than 200% intensity. In India also, we are now working with about 143% intensity. So that means intensification is another way of sequestering carbon, because we are harvesting more, we are adding more biomass, and we have more energy and water are nutrient efficient. And very important now, increasing crop productivity. We are now just not talking about DSR, direct seed rice versus vis-a-vis transplanted rice or wetland rice. Very, very clearly, it's very well known that intense diversity crop rotation, or when we say DSR, direct seed rice, it also minimizes emissions, particularly the methane emissions. But we have to keep in mind, we have to look into emissions which are yield scaled or area scaled. When you're talking about area scaled emission, that means per hectare, the emissions may be less. But DSR always has a, I would say, a yield penalty. If you compare the transfer rice, DSR always yields less by about 20%. If you look at the emissions also, the emissions are also less by about 20%. So per ton of rice produced, it may be DSR, it may be transfer rice, the emissions are same. So we have to, another factor dimension we were at, carbon sequestration or carbon emission per ton of the produce, because we need food also. So not only carbon. So that means we have to be careful. Are we making calculations based on per area basis? They may be less. But per ton of produce, they may be same. So we have to keep that in mind. Then instead of monoculture, rice wheat all the time. So if we can have more diversification, different kinds of carbon compounds come. Someone talked about soybean. Soybean is a leguminous crop. The carbon quality is totally different because the amino acids release, CN ratio, they differentially affect carbon emissions and carbon decomposition. So that means we have to bring in some sort of diversification every year. And very important, I will talk about later, about return of crop residues and farmyard manure. This is a very, very important practice, because I will show you estimates how crop residues can help really to build up carbon. And organic manures, we are talking about integrated nutrient management all the time. And then similarly, green manuring and legumes you bring in. And there should not be any fallow, because when the period is fallow, so you are exposing your soil to the vagaries of nature. So there is a rain, there is a heat, and carbon keeps on going out and nothing is coming in. So fallow should be avoided as far as possible. And then we look for deep placement of carbon. This is very important. If you have crop which is only surface feeder, the carbon which is added to soil, the moment you plow it goes back. But if the roots, they put carbon deep in the soil, that tend to stay in the soil, and that means that is a real carbon sequestered. Now, practices which reduce carbon output. Now, very important, I think we have not talked so far in this whole.
Sir, kindly, your time, sir. Another 1 or 2
One more slide. One more slide.
Yes.
Okay. And when you are talking about carbon emissions or carbon losses, no one has talked about erosion control. In India, 95 million hectares is eroded land. We have not talked about. Now, if you this is a picture when you go to lower Shivaliks, if you go anywhere from Chandigarh to up to Shimla, you go anywhere from other side of Sharpur, you find these kind of things. Soils are getting eroded. There is no vegetation. Even if you plant them, you don't need to do all those small things in a field with the farmers. So they are major source. In India, 110 million hectare area is degraded, and 95 million hectares by only wind and water. And then we have already discussed CA or reduced tillage and mulch farming. We have talked, but we have to again talk about that. When you say mulch or farming or tillage, we have to see, are we really estimating correctly? Because if you go for reduced tillage or tillage, for 2-3 years your carbon content may go down. There may be yield penalty. One thing. Secondly, there may be stratification. If you don't till, so your carbon is on the surface layer only. If you till, it may go down in the lower layers mixed up. So that means we have to also keep in mind, we should make proper methodology, proper estimates. Now, these are estimates which we have made based on studies in India, that how much carbon you can sequester in Indian soils per hectare per year. So they are roughly about 0.2 to 0.6 tons carbon per hectare per year could be sequestered. Now, crop residues. If you in India, if you put all surface crop residues, that means 150 million tons of residue out of other uses. You produce 6 million tons, and out of that, 150 million tons they added to Indian soils. You can sequester 6.3 million tons of carbon in Indian soils. In Punjab alone, if you don't burn it, you can increase carbon content by a content of 350 kilogram carbon per hectare per year. So that means, so this is a key technology which we should try to adopt. Then I don't want to talk about this because we have talked about carbon finance. This is not my topic, but I just want to bring in that how you monitor it. Farmers, now there is a study to grow indigo, and they are making a 1,000 acres of land in Punjab, Haryana, Maharashtra, and they with remote sensing they're tagging up that they would see changes in carbon. How long? When would they say? After how much time? They all will determine what is the carbon value of that particular practice. So that has to be there are issues with that. So that we have to that means we have to set up benchmarks. Above this value, we have a carbon sequester. Below this value, those benchmarks have to be set up for each and every soil type, each and every land use changing, land use. Finally, now other issues we have already discussed, but as far as agricultural carbon sequestration concerned, monitoring, verification, and transaction costs are very high for the farmers. And then how long this practice will continue, its continuity is very, very important for the farmer. And with small land holdings, these become more bigger. And then so leakage, permanence, maintenance, they are all issues. And with that, I thank you for giving me this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for a very nice presentation and talking science behind carbon sequestration and also carbon trading. And also you have discussed a lot of principle behind these land management for carbon sequestration and also factor need to be considered while increasing the carbon input and also carbon buildup. Thank you so much, sir. It is very informative and useful. Thank you. Now I request Mr. Chandrasekhar Haribhav Batsavle to discuss on Saguna rice technique, a simple and sustainable solution for carbon sequestration. I am very happy to introduce him. He is a founder member and a managing trustee, Saguna Rural Foundation, Maharashtra, and an innovative farmer. He himself is a farmer, and he did his MS Food Science, Food Tech from University of California, Davis in 1972. After his graduation in Agriculture Konkan Krishi Vidyapith, Dapoli in 1970, and he is practicing innovative agriculture practices. He has developed a no-tillage regenerative method of agriculture, and his success model is adopted by about 5,000 farmers in Maharashtra. And he is also doing other innovative activity. He is a pioneer in agri-tourism in India, which gives dignity to farmers. And he also developed other technique, SVT. It is a prevention of forest fire and also rejuvenation of degraded hills. And SJT, that is Saguna Sanvardhan technique to protect the water bodies from invasive floating weeds. And because of his innovative areas and innovative approach, he has been awarded many awards like Krishi Ratna 2015, Government of Maharashtra in 2019, and Krishi Bhushan 1998, Government of Maharashtra, and Earth Care Award SARC 2016, and the Watt Save Farmer Award by ICID Thailand 2016. And he also gave TEDx talks and also he has given many lecture in other reputed organization like FAO Rome in 2015 about the zero tillage conservation agriculture practices for rice, and Cornell University on no-till rice with SRT. And also he participated in roundtable conference at Mexico City by Global Farmer Network. So with this small introduction, I welcome once again Dr. Chandrasekhar ji. So please over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Okay, my friends, thank you for introducing me as a successful farmer. And I'm going to talk about carbon incentive project by our trust, Saguna Rural Foundation. We all know that global warming and climate change are already here and have posed a threat to the existence of all of us, including our planet. We must also take note that the trouble is approaching at a faster speed than what was forecasted earlier. Hence, by many, all of them, they say it should be the decade of action rather than doing a lot of basic research. It should be a decade of action. The problem is that too much of the carbon has escaped into our atmosphere, and the solution is to catch that carbon and put it back into the soil, which is the largest pool of the carbon. This is possible by the basic science of photosynthesis, resynthesis, exudation, and humification. As you can see on the right part of the slide, that this photosynthesis process catches carbon from the air and puts back into the soil through liquid carbon pathway. And you must have been knowing, some of you, about this particular pathway. But these steps must be followed by a no-till regenerative method of farming. And this is our practice. In the upper portion of the slide, that's a degenerative method of farming where you use tillage practices. And our SRT, Saguna rice technique, is a regenerative method of farming where in this particular picture, this farmer is growing wheat without burning the paddy stubble. And there are at least 40 to 50 farmers in past 4 years who are growing wheat without burning the stubble now. So this is the solution, is a regenerative method of farming. So what are the problems? What are the challenges? Problem number 1A, that the development and marketing strategies of the heavy machinery manufacturing organizations. I have been participating in various exhibitions world over, and I see bigger and bigger tractors being used now for tillage purpose. So this is one of the challenge. Even in India, we are bringing in more automated, bigger tractors for tillage purpose. The challenge number 2, state and national governments bringing policies that are based on popular philosophies such as organic farming rather than scientific principles. The policies should be there, planned based on the scientific principles. We already know Sri Lankan government has already faced a problem, and where we need to go by planning our policies based on scientific principles rather than anti-chemical lobbying by wrong wordings and wrong sentences, which cause irreversible damage to the mindset of farmers as well as the general public. And the third challenge is orthodox mindset of the farmers. They don't want to change for a different path rather than for the self-improvement. So we want to, these are the 3 challenges which we have found out that we are facing. The mathematical modeling of the carbon incentive plan and the actual handing over the paychecks to the farmers can be fairly easy and quick. But sensitizing farmers for the subject with a simpler technique which can be adapted by the farmers is a slow and difficult process requiring persistent efforts. POKHRA, that is Project on Climate Resilient Agriculture, it's a project in Maharashtra funded by World Bank, is one such organization who has proved to be doing all these activity effectively over last 3 years and is about to demonstrate the beginning of the movement of regenerative method of farming where soil health improvement through carbon sequestration is the key issue. I would like to show you the data of the Pokhara here. Data. Next, yeah, you can see here. This Pokhara started about 3 years ago in 2019. They had only one farmer using this SRT no-till method of farming. 2020, next year, from 1 to 30 farmers. In 21, 286 farmers. And in this year, they are expecting between 700 to 1,000 farmers. That's a wonderful growth. And this is where I say that the movement is about to start. So here you can see that these organization, they have already come out with an order. This is written in Marathi, but you can see this order is there, and they have now started a large program of sensitizing their class 1 and class 2 officers, as well as thousands of farmers they want to sensitize. And this is what is the result. The result is all the different types. So our objective, I will explain you what is SRT. SRT, that is Saguna rice technique, is a conservation agriculture, no-till method of farming, which does not cause atrocity of tillage, completely stops soil erosion, promotes natural presence of earthworms, increases organic carbon of the soil, considerably increases productivity of the land, and added effect of amazing happiness and confidence to the farmer. So you can see that the farmers all over in all different regions are becoming happy, and the soil is becoming happy. So you can see earthworms, presence of earthworms in all different types of soils in all 6 agroclimatic zones. So our mission is to see that healthy soil, happy farmer, and happy environment. From this slide, you can see at our farm, Saguna Bagh, in past, say maybe 10 years, this is the changes. We have found out that number of butterflies have been identified, 52 in number, 17 different types of reptiles, 27 different types of spiders, 120 different types of birds, insects, 64 types, and honeybees, 4 types. So this is a big change, big increase on our farm, which we have noticed in past 10 years. And this is where we say that our SRT technique is bringing in big changes by carbon sequestration and improving biodiversity. In 2015, we realized from a scientific article by Christine Jones of Australia that farmers need to be incentivized if they adopt a no-till regenerative method of farming. At about the same time, we came across the information that 1% increase in soil organic carbon is equivalent to 18 tons of atmospheric carbon fixation per year per acre. From the initial soil analysis of Saguna Bagh, we saw soil organic carbon going up from 0.3% to 1% within 4 crop cycles, which is 18 months. After adoption of SRT method, based on this basic information, our NGO, Saguna Rural Foundation, decided to give an incentive of 2,000 rupees to a farmer for adopting SRT on his land. And so information, so SRT on his half-acre land. The hypothetical figure was arrived based on the hope that the soil organic carbon will go up by 0.5% by continuously adopting SRT for 2 crop cycles. The project was flagged off in June 2018 with the help of Dr. Emmanuel De Silva, who was World Bank expert. But the soil analysis part was caught in the lockdown problem, which happened in 2019. Hence, we decided to award the incentive checks to those pre-decided farmers who continued their efforts using SRT no-till farming methods till today. They are already practicing this SRT no-till method. This probably was the first such carbon incentive rewards in India. The checks were handed over with the consent of Dr. Emmanuel De Silva and the virtual presence of Project Director Pokhara, Mrs. Indra Malo, on 5th December 2021. And this is the picture where we are showing you that 10 farmers from Karjat Taluka, that is Raigad district, and 10 farmers from Pune districts were rewarded these paychecks of carbon incentive, that is 2,000 rupees per half an acre of land. Thank you very much. This is what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for a very innovative work which you are doing, and it is very encouraging. Ultimately, you have motivated many farmers. You started with one farmer, and many farmer in Pokhara is adopting your method. And as you have seen, it is people are happy, farmers are happy, soil is healthy, and the environment is also with rich biodiversity. And these are all the good indicators for success. And we also rewarding the people who are adapting the your success model. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your presence. Now I request Dr. Sudarshan Kumar Datta to make a presentation on carbon farming, a win-win for Indian farming system. Before that, I would like to introduce him. He is working as a lead agronomist India at Agoro Carbon Alliance, a Norway-based carbon farming organization. Dr. Datta promotes sustainable management practices in Indian farming system and provides leadership in planning and execution of carbon farming in India. Before joining Agoro Carbon Alliance, Dr. Datta worked African Plant Nutrition Institute, Morocco, and worked extensively with small farming in North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa. His present responsibility includes development of research and scientific evidence to define best nutrient management practices and building capacity through education and student advising. He is the program coordinator of the Soil Health Livestock System program of Institute. He is also adjunct faculty of School of Agriculture, Fertilizer and Sustainable Environmental Sciences, University of Mohammed VI Polytechnic, Morocco. So before joining APNI, Dr. Datta also worked at the International Plant Nutrition Institute and also responsible for research and extension activities of the institute in Eastern India, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Sri Lanka. With this introduction, I extend a warm welcome to Dr. Sudarshan Kumar Datta. Please over to you, sir. Kindly unmute yourself, please.
Okay, sure. Thank you so much for such nice introduction, Dr. Balasubramani. And thank you very much for inviting me in this August gathering and this very important event. I would also like to thank Mr. Vijay Kolekar Saab from Pokhara for referring my name here. So, and I'm really excited to see a lot of this presentation that is going on. And I also see some of my teachers and previous colleagues in the list, which is great feeling. So let me share my presentation here. So, and I would like to put it in the presentation mode. So hopefully this is visible and I'm audible to all of you.
Yes, please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. And yeah, so basically all these presentations have different aspects of carbon farming, how we can produce a sustainable agricultural practices, and what are the methods and techniques that we are following, and what is the other side of the coin, which is like the project development, and how the global perspective are looking forward for carbon farming, especially in global south and smallholder farming system. All these things has been described very nicely. So I would give an introduction about my organization, which is Agoro Carbon Alliance, and how we are helping the smallholder farming system. and why I am saying carbon farming as a win-win for the farms. So basically, we are a grower-specific organization where we are focusing the success of growers, which is basically farmers and agri-entrepreneurs working towards the growing side or the production side. And we are a team. We are trying to build a team with the farmers, agronomists, and business platform, who all are believing that the cropping of carbon or carbon as an additional crop that we can harvest from the system and get an additional benefit. So before we say about that, so Agro Carbon Alliance, which are a global organization, we work in the entire value chain. We start from agronomy, then scale it up, work in the global scale, and we also help the farmers or taking part in the certification process, which is basically signing contract and how the farmers get the payment. And we also work with the off-takers who basically wants to fund this kind of project for the farming, for benefits of farmer as well as environmental side. So in our philosophy, what we believe is that improving farm soil health with good agronomic management practices is our solution. And to achieve that, we are working towards collectively with the scientists, with the agri professionals, entrepreneurs, and digital who are using even digital platforms, so on and so forth, and of course the ultimate stakeholder, which is the farmer. So we have been discussing about the different methods and practices related to agronomic practices related to soil health improvement, but I'm not specifically focusing any particular thing as per our organization. We generally promote whatever good for the farmers, whatever good for his own domain and niche, that would actually ultimately help improving soil health. So the two win are: one is the soil health improvement, simultaneously an additional monetary benefit through carbon farming. So how the cycle works, basically, to us, we start capturing the farmer and the farm carbons and how we can reduce the emission, because we both work towards the reduction of resources, as Professor Bembi was mentioning about that. There is a huge part related with the input and its background, like production of urea definitely cause some burning of fossil fuel. So all these parts is a part of that. And the other part is the sequestration, which is basically absorbing the global carbon, atmospheric carbon to the soil and improve the soil health. So this will basically help to generate the farm credits, and we help the farmer with our agronomic expertise, with our soil science expertise, with our team, how they can go for the agronomic practices that helps them to produce more carbon. And we also help the farmer to develop the platform, which is basically helping them to connect with the buyer part, and to get this carbon credit assured, we also take part in this independent verification process. So basically, we are providing the carbon solutions to the high quality farms and to the smallholder farming system as well. So basically, two ways that we are actually taking part in this point. One is the conservation agricultural practices, actually that has proven the productivity boost and farm profit potential. I'm sure that this is not, I didn't need to mention again because the audience all know about these things. And CA generate the carbon credits, which is the second part, which basically helps the financial incentive to the farmer. I just give you some examples which are like from US, because in India we have started working, and I will give you some examples of our working in India. But in this is actually a 10-year projection from US, which gives a 3,000 acre farm corn soybean crop rotation. And we see that in the initial part there might be there will be some possibility of less farm income because of the shifting, because of the change in the practices. But as long as the time goes on, when we put more and more conservation agricultural practices in practice or in reality, then there is a possibility that, and there is a definite possibility of improving the output from the farm in terms of financial growth. Another example, I mean, if we talk about reduced tillage, it gives an example of about $11 per acre benefit, and then added cover crop, which is like an inclusion of a new crop in the system, maybe an intercrop or a cover crop as a whole. It definitely has a value addition of about $6 an acre. And if we go for nitrogen optimization, we call it nutrient stewardship, or 4R nutrient stewardship, when we will be applying right source of nutrient at right rate, at right place, and at right time. It gives an additional benefit about $1. So basically, this is one component of the vertical where we are seeing the financial benefit. On the other hand, there is also a practice benefit, which is basically soil health improvement, ecological benefits, like reduction of the input cost, or yield potential, so on and so forth. So basically, that's an additional component that we are talking about. So, and it will definitely increase over the period of time when the carbon sequestration, more and more carbon gets sequestered, and farmers get more profit out of it. So far, in terms of activities, what we have done in India, we are in the process of developing the strategies, and we are also taking the approaches in the ground, how we are taking it forward. We have taken 4 verticals in production side. One is nutrient management, where we are following this nutrient stewardship approach, which is 4R nutrient stewardship that the international fertilizer industries have taken care, are promoting, which is a science-based solution for nutrient management and crop nutrition. We are also looking the water management, which is basically evolving the irrigation methodologies and the products, because irrigation can get the maximum benefit in terms of carbon credit when we tag it or incorporate the right products that is required for the irrigation management. These are our short-term objectives, and in long term, we will be scaling of this residue management and new crop, which is like cover crop and crop rotation and intercropping. So basically, when we are talking to the farmers, when we are taking this carbon project concept to the farmers, the four pillar strategies. First 2 we are thinking of for a quick scalable technologies, and the others we are thinking need some time to get promoted. And in activities in India, we basically are working with our core part and non-core part. We are through our direct approach, that the 4 pillars that we are talking about, that I have talked about, we are sticking to the ground. We are directly working with the farmers, where we are understanding the scopes, the entry point, and the point of intervention that is required, and we are trying to solve their challenges with our agronomy and soil science background. On the other hand, we are also working with the partners. We are respecting the network, and we are also taking the leverage of those players who are already a big contributor to the rural farming community, who already has a strong ground network. We are trying to help those farmers with our knowledge and expertise and carbon project development platform, and then that is what we are calling as an indirect or partnership. So this is what so far we are. I think like there might be a lot of questions, and maybe a lot of organizations who might be interested to take a partnership with us, because we are the platform for carbon project development. and I have my contact number below and WhatsApp number. So in case of you have any questions and queries, please contact me. But basically the idea is we are working with the stakeholders who are actually working in the ground. We are ourselves working in the ground, and we also are working towards providing advisory in terms of developing carbon projects. So basically, it's a range of activities that we are doing. All together, we can help the smallholder farming system to harvest carbon as a new crop. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Datta, for describing various carbon offset project and business opportunities, and also describing scope of conservation agriculture in offsetting carbon emission. Yes, as you said, carbon can be an additional source of income to the farmer if we implement all these activities. Thank you so much for your sharing.
Thank you.
Now I request Dr. Manish Anand to make a presentation on green farming and finance in India, innovation, opportunities and challenges. Dr. Manish Anand.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. So I'm happy to introduce Dr. Manish Anand. He is a senior fellow at the Energy and Resource Institute, Delhi. He's an interdisciplinary research professional with more than 15 years of experience in policy research, advocacy, and capacity building, encompassing diverse areas of agriculture, food and land use, resource use and efficiency, and emerging technologies. He is academically trained in science policy, innovation studies, developmental studies, and agriculture. Currently, his research and policy analysis work focus on generating evidence, strategies, and methodologies based on system thinking approaches towards sustainable food and land use system, including sustainable agriculture practices, natural resource use, rural livelihood, human health and nutrition, and climate change. So with this small introduction, I extend a warm welcome to Dr. Manish Anand. Over to you, Dr. Manish.
Thank you, Dr. Bala. Can you hear me and can you see my slide?
Yeah. It's
okay.
Perfect.
Thank you. Good evening, all. And first of all, I'd like to thank you, Manage and Dr. Bala, for providing me this opportunity to share my viewpoints on this very pertinent topic. So I will be speaking on more in terms of the green farming practices and the finance opportunities in India from an innovation perspective. Just to give you a background on about TERI, so we are an independent multidimensional organization with capabilities in research, policy, consultancy, and implementation. We are also innovators and agents of change in the energy, environment, climate change, and sustainability space, and having pioneered conversations and action in these areas for over 4 decades. In the area of agriculture, we have worked in different verticals on emerging technologies, such as using nanobiotechnology to develop a range of green products, tissue culture, biopesticides, advanced biofuel production. In the area of modeling, we are engaged in doing climate modeling, simulations at various temporal scales and spatial scales. Then impacts, vulnerability and adaptation assessment, inventorization and mitigation. Also in the area of energy, water, land, and climate linkages. Also, we are also actively working in the area of demonstrating change at the ground level, more in terms of applying biotechnological tools, providing planting materials, enhancing resource use efficiency, and then increasing marginal farmers' capacities through training and demonstration. Also, we are working in the area of development of market linkages by establishing value chains, particularly in the mountainous systems. Coming to the topic on climate resilient agricultural practices and finance, we all know that leveraging investments for climate resilient agricultural practices is essential to address these challenges which are interwoven of climate change mitigation, adaptation, and food security. While We all know that funding for agriculture sector has been historically challenging due to the complexities in evaluating the impact of agricultural interventions. The lack of adaptation funds particularly has further restricted the adoption of required measures in the sector. So to move past this shortfall, there's a need for India more in terms of to leverage learnings from existing activities and practices and pilots that uses innovative financial approaches, both to achieve climate benefits as well as design and deploy additional pilot projects. This we think that will result in the formulation of more effective and efficient large-scale programs and policies. More in terms of the water challenge in farming, we are all aware that as a result of the green revolution, yields have increased, but at the same time, we have increased water use. And so windows for irrigation at critical growth stages in all crops, say for example, as shown in the slide, rice and wheat are small. And therefore, farmers have tended to over-irrigate to ensure enough hydration at those critical stages. If the plant cannot access enough water at those times, you have a crop failure. So where the water source for irrigation is groundwater, we see over extraction of groundwater. As a result, the groundwater level falls and more energy is needed to pump it up so as to guarantee crop production. So with climate change, we already experience great volatility and unpredictability of weather, and this affects agriculture productivity. The latest statistical analysis of monsoons indicates that while the total amount of water available from the monsoon has not decreased, the number of rainy days has dropped. And there are periods of drought in between. So this tests our ability to of the farmers to have the soil irrigated and wet at the times when they need it. So we need to decarbonize the agriculture sector, and what should be the strategy for that? So for decarbonizing the agriculture, we need to enhance water use and energy use efficiency. It has been argued that water use efficiency and energy efficiency in agriculture are self-regulating phenomenon, and these are largely driven by water energy prices. This is only partially correct now. Climate change, so to say, requires us to effectively decarbonize our economies by the third quarter of this century. And so this implies that agricultural operations will need to become more fossil fuel free in the next coming couple of decades. And we think that these will require three parallel interventions. The first is to enhance water use and energy efficiency in agricultural operations. Second is to convert agricultural operations to utilize electricity instead of fossil fuels. And third, to decarbonize the electricity supply by converting to renewable sources instead of fossil fuels. So all these three interventions would require policies, incentives, and regulations for their initial acceptance, commercial model development, and also large-scale replication. So we need to convert these agricultural operations, as to say water farming, to use electricity instead of fossil fuels, such as for tilling and sowing, and also to convert electricity generation to renewable sources and away from fossil fuels. So changing over to renewables obviously will has a capital cost, but that can be eased by using the right business models, the right kind of bank loans. It should not require subsidies per se, but rather a reorientation of how finances flow into the sector. We all know that a large solar pumping program was introduced in India to encourage farmers to irrigate using electric pumps at zero or near zero cost because there was huge subsidies. However, the free electricity led to over pumping and over extraction of groundwater. The new program that has been launched in 2019 March provides for the solar pump generated electricity to be sold to the electricity grid when it is not being used for pumping water. that gives farmers an additional revenue stream. And we have calculated what sort of more in terms of cost would be required in undertaking such an integrated approach. So that would give farmers an additional revenue stream. So for the grid managers, it is far more attractive to get electricity generated locally in a rural region than to get it from a power station far away. So with associated loss along the transmission line. So the key to achieving this solution is to have a suitable business model, because farming profitably with one crop is difficult. With one, so to say, with one crop and electricity cell, it is easier, and with two crops and electricity cell, it is better still. The structuring which was created for this program enables the farmer to put in a solar pump and pay for it from the electricity he sells to the grid. So as arriving at such kind of business model is the need. The second issue is of the scaling up. So we have about 20 million pumps that would need to be changed. And as per a recent study, replacing 1/4 of the 8.8 million diesel irrigation pumps in India with solar pumps would reduce carbon dioxide emissions by 11.5 million tons per year. So that is a huge scope. So more in terms of stimulating demands, we need to focus on these two aspects. And what we see is also more in terms of similarities with the Green Revolution era, which was looking at the multiplication of high-yielding varieties during that time in the 60s, 70s. It was exactly the same time. Challenge was same, more in terms of how do you scale up a good solution to be taken up widely and enable price reductions. So public commitment was also high during that Green Revolution era. Similarly, now also we see that public commitment to clean and resource efficient technologies such as solar pumps, micro irrigation is high and can be included in broad strategies. But we need suitable business models and finance. So there's a huge scope for learning from pilots. And we are just this is a pilot. One such project which was exploring the viability of solar pumps was the Dhundi Solar Pump Irrigators Cooperative Enterprise, SPICE, which was started in 2016 by both Tata Water Policy Program and IWMI in the Gujarat's Dhundi village. So the model sought to make solar pumps affordable for farmers by providing a 90% capital cost subsidy. And to enhance farmers' income stream, the project facilitated farmers to form cooperatives and sell surplus electricity back to the grid at fixed feed-in tariff under a 25-year power purchase agreement. To encourage efficient utilization of resources, SPICE included a provision for bonus for producing green energy and conserving water. So these kind of bonuses resulted in climate smart groundwater irrigation. Also, the pilot was successful and led to a decline in energy consumption. As you can see, the statistics here, there was a 46% decline in energy consumption. So more in terms of building on the Dhundi, this pilot project, a subsidy scheme was launched in 2018 by the government of Gujarat, and it was called the Surya Shakti Kisan Yojana. The aim of the scheme was to promote solar power in agriculture and increase farmers' self-reliance for the energy needs. So the Surya Shakti Kisan Yojana, in line with Dhundi SPICE pilot project, included the following components that aimed at making it financially and technologically viable for farmers to give up their grid-based electricity connections for agriculture purposes. So here it should be noted that the ability to sell off excess power to the grid and the associated incentives encouraged farmers to also conserve resource such as water and electricity, and achieve resource efficiency. And a host of financial instruments was used, which I discussed now. So the key is messages from these two pilots and initiatives and in the sector are that we need to design suitable finance models. The Surya Shakti Kisan Yojana financial model was designed in a way that makes it financially viable and sustainable for all stakeholders involved. And the provision of feed-in tariff and evacuation-based incentives also further incentivize the farmers to effectively utilize resources, making it a sustainably viable option. Second is forming cooperatives as platforms for demand aggregation. Since this project also involved establishing farmer cooperatives, this enabled demand aggregation and pooling of resources, and which enabled farmers to collectively access and manage finance at better terms. So as seen in this pilot, the financial burden of individual farmer within a cooperative was lowered down, and since the cost and the associated risks was divided among all members. So this in turn led to the improvement in the ability of vulnerable groups like the small and marginal farmers to invest in climate smart farm equipment and technologies. So conducting pilot like this is important to demonstrate the viability of innovative financial interventions for complex issues such as climate change in agriculture, and understand its high uncertainty risk profile as well as the adaptation potential by the people. So with this, I'd like to conclude. Thank you very much. Over to you, Dr. Bala.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Manish, for presenting a very interesting case of green farming and Dundi Solar Pump Irrigators Cooperative Enterprises. It is a very interesting model. And as you said, there is a immense scope for improving the use efficiency of water and also energy in agriculture by addressing the challenges appropriately. So thank you very much for your nice presentation and your presence. Now, so you can close your presentation, please, Dr. Manish. So, so as per schedule, we have completed all panel discussion. The panelists have made a presentation. Now, a question and answer session. Some questions are there, not many, only very few, because all we cannot address here because of the time limitation. Only very few questions are which can be addressed here. One, Mr. Praveen Kulkarni, I think he was asking many queries whether whatever the project which is eligible for taking up the financing, carbon financing. One is cold storage to reduce 30% to 40% waste of food produced. So whether this can be considered as a low cost finance under carbon financing. So this he has asked for Mr. Mac. Mr. Mac is there? Yeah. So kindly unmute yourself, please. Can you unmute yourself?
Mute yourself.
Yeah, it's unmuted. Yeah.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I wanted to give a quick answer to that. Thank you for that question. And yes, I think there are potentials such as that. To access carbon finance, you need many criteria, but the three that we would have to really be able to sort of look at to start with. One would be, can we measure relatively accurately the carbon savings from that process? Two would be, can we prove additionality of carbon finance, meaning that that saving wouldn't happen if not for carbon finance. Otherwise, if it's worth doing just for profit, then it won't work. So additionality is the second one. And then the third one is there an approved methodology with VERRA or gold standard to be able to access carbon finance? So these are like three starting criteria we need to look at to see if we can access. And that would apply not only to this cold storage, but many other ideas within agriculture carbon finance. Thank you.
I think you have clarified the doubt, and actually he is asking the same question for other project also, like solar glass greenhouse which generate energy from roof and also uses 90% less water while doing high-tech horticulture inside the solar roofed glass house. Can we help us to get the finance as startup in the first company to get solar tariff for our 5 megawatt solar glass greenhouse in UP? We also create 50 to 200 jobs within this project, which has cold storage too. So I think criteria you already told. I think it may be answer to this also. It seems.
Yes, you're correct, sir. The same criteria applies to all projects in carbon finance. So if we can prove that we can measure, we can show additionality, and we can tailor to an existing methodology or get a new methodology developed and approved, then we can start looking at carbon finance. There's other things like execution and various other things, but these three would be a starting point for any project, not just solar irrigation or cold storage. Any of these would require those sorts of criteria to be fulfilled. Thank you.
Thank you. I think another Kalvakuntla Jivandra, he is asking what is the current price of carbon credit?
It depends on the type of credit, sir. The prices range all the way from, let's say, $2-3 for large-scale renewable energy to $25 for mangroves. Agriculture soil carbon, depending on the country, depending on the type, sell anywhere between $8 to $20 per ton right now.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. He is having another question. What is the blue carbon credit?
Blue carbon credits, 95% is from mangroves, mangrove restoration and mangrove protection. But people are also exploring in Australia seagrass, salt marshes, and a few other things. But almost 99.9% of the credits from blue carbon today that are transacted are mangroves. And India has also lots of mangroves, as you know.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir. I think except all only their comments about the presentation and some. So many are requesting PPT. So I think with the permission of all the panelists, if you are agreeing, I will share all the PPT to all the participants through their mail. I think, okay, thank you. I think many have agreed. Thank you so much for all the panelists. I will share the presentation. So one Mr. Kuldeep Rai is requesting how can one avail facility to undertake endeavor? Any of the panelists can answer? You can, the panelist can unmute while talking and yourself, and you can talk. Those who wanted to.
Could you repeat the question again, sir?
How can one avail facility to undertake endeavor?
Endeavor?
Yeah, I don't know. He is Dr. Kuldeep Rai. I think it is a question is also not fully written. Okay.
Sorry, sir, I don't understand what endeavor is.
Yeah, yes, sir. Yeah. Okay, how can another Mr. Chris, he has asked one question, how can we start carbon project in our country? We are a CBBO having project in 8 states. What the manage and abroad or any other apex organization are going to do? Or Rather, we can work with those who are willing to help us in carbon market. Do I hope there will be convergence on forwarded pathway by the end of this meeting. One Mr. Chris, he is asking, he wanted to work with us and anybody is willing to associate with this CBBO. They are working in 8 states and they are willing to cooperate. I think definitely there will, after this meeting, those who are interested to associate with Manage for this, you can write to us, and next meeting with Mr. Mac and other members, we can work, and wherever there is a feasibility, we can work together. All comments only. Okay. Okay, one Mr. Chris, again, he asked Dr. Datta, we are interested to know more about your work and scope of carbon for small holding in our country. We have a PIVO program in 8 states. Again, he is telling. He wanted to associate with Dr. Datta, if there is any. I think, Dr. Datta, you wanted to tell something? You raised your hand. Yeah. You can unmute yourself, otherwise I will unmute. Yeah, you can go.
I can. Sorry. Yeah. So actually, I have a couple of things. Just to the first previous question, I can be a part of that discussion, and for this one also. Basically, what we are doing is we are working in partnership with with the team that, or the stakeholders who are having the on the ground network. Also, we are directly working with the farmers in Punjab and Haryana. We have started working. We have started working in the western part of the country, which is like Maharashtra. So if any farming organization or any farmers FPO want to know more about carbon project setting up, kindly feel free to email me. I can take it forward from there. There itself. Having said that, I think that answer both the questions, because we will be working with the farmers directly on carbon project development with our team. That is one part, and the other thing is like how we can help. Yes, again the same answer. Basically, what we work is we work in the whole value chain. It starts from carbon project development, but before that we start with the scoping. We start with understanding the socioeconomic status, the farm typology, the farmer's resource endowment capacity, and on one side, and on the other side the agronomy and the soil aspects. And based on our scoping activities, our initial baseline surveys, we go with the main project development, as Mr. Ramchandran was mentioning, like whether there's a possibility of additionality, or whether there is a reduction credit possibility, or there is a possibility of sequestration. All these things that come into play. I cannot say, to be very honest, from sitting here, what shoots well in your specific typology. But I will be definitely interested to, or looking forward to help the smallholder farming systems. Smallholder farming system is a very interesting approach, because when we are talking about US or an advanced agricultural system where one farmer basically poses 2-3 villages of India. But at the same time, we have a unique nature, which is unique in terms of challenges, and of course there is an opportunity, because small intervention which are scalable are the way forward for us, where we can integrate a lot of farmers with small changes that can make impactful on carbon credit. Hope that answers the question.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Datta. So another one question from Rohan Rawat. if the market for carbon credit is so lucrative, then why Brazil did not claim for carbon credit for Amazon forest?
Brazil is claiming carbon credit for Amazon forest, hundreds of millions of dollars a year, and they are now positioning themselves with a new concept called R-Trees and a sovereign carbon MRV, monitoring, reporting, and verification system. And they could get over $1 billion a year for Amazon forest.
Okay, thank
if
you.
they play their cards right.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mack. And so another from Professor Dr. Manmohan is asking carbon finance in UNFCCC guide which require document preparation to license, etc. Will in India, will it possible though many pilot studies taken? Why not scalable?
India renewable energy carbon credits was eminently scalable, and India traded a few 100 million tons of renewable energy credits in the past. Forestry credits is getting equally big. It's going to be equally big very soon, given the investments going in. And thanks to folks like Manage and NABARD, I hope agriculture soil also becomes scalable.
Thank you, sir. I think Mr. Manish is asking what is the share of animal rumen in greenhouse gas emission?
Globally, over half the agricultural emissions come from livestock, and then within livestock there are subcategories. I can share a paper with you, Dr. Balasubramaniam, written by a famous Indian on livestock and enteric fermentation and stuff. But globally, the average is around half from agriculture and half of is from livestock.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And Mr. Kishore Kumar is asking how carbon finance helps in reduction in carbon footprint of milk in animal husbandry sector, especially small dairy farmers.
Dr. Sudarshan might know. I haven't worked in the milk sector. I would have to think about it, but Dr. Sudarshan might know.
Yeah. Anybody else? Any of the panelists? Sir, I think Murthy sir, did you work on any animal husbandry area to reduce the greenhouse gases? Sir, sorry, sir. You can unmute. Yeah, I will unmute you. Yeah. NABARD is having any experience in animal husbandry reducing the greenhouse gases?
The only one at present one pilot is going on in Punjab on the under NFCC regarding the housing of livestock sheds and everything, climate resilient sheds. That is in the pilot stage. Designs have been done. To that extent, it has come out. Designs have come out. Commercial designs have come out. Beyond this one, we did not have.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Actually, shed management, different component in animal husbandry, even shed management, in fodder management, if they are going for succulent fodder, feed mixture, and concentrated feed, definitely it improves the digestibility and reduce the carbon emission. So, carbon finance and that reducing the enteric farm footprint. Then I think it is only a message. I think the one Dr. Vipin is asking, there is no presentation regarding difficulties in carbon credit. Please clarify. I think every panelist were mentioning challenges in different credit. I think you might not have observed, and every panelist are mentioning different challenges. I think when we send the presentation, kindly go through your presentation, please. Can we check the one, Mr. Naveen Kumar is asking, can we check the current carbon credit sell by any other company? Mr. Mack, can
Do you want me to answer?
Yeah, please.
You may not be able to get specific company data, but there are global platforms like Allied Offsets, NGO, and the World Bank annual carbon report that have carbon prices The fourth one is ecosystem marketplace. All of these four publish prices by type of credits, by country, by year, etc.
Thank you. Thank you. And one question is from Pratima. What is the future of CDM markets?
It's literally a billion-dollar question. I don't know. I mean, CDM is a UN FCC authorized marketplace that was very, very big till about a few years ago. There were significant quality concerns with the CDM credits, literally hundreds of millions of tons of past credits. There was some clarity with Article 6 negotiations in COP26. But CDM in its new form will come out in some way, but we will know better in the next few months. The CDM website keeps updating on their internal discussions on when and what form the new CDM will take place. I think it's worth following their website.
Thank you. Thank you. I think another Mr. Desmukh is asking, is there any Government of India policy for carbon credit finance? Please share. I think Murthy sir may be having some input.
No policy, sir. So far, no policy because we require a lot of granular information. Then the taxonomy issues are there, and for example, I mean already it has been presented. Sometimes for a banker, for a regulator, even for RBI and for NABARD, wheat cultivation cost-wise finance is same, but the way it's practiced, it is different. So we require a lot of taxonomy and that information we require it to come out spelled out clearly. Clearly we can able to differentiate it. Mitigation side is very easily doable, so argular and everything is doable. But on the adaptation side, a lot of issues are there. So we are also working, and it's required by our Reserve Bank of India also to come out with a clear guidelines. That is an issue now, right?
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Now, another question from Mr. Veeresh. How the carbon credits are get verified and what will be the buffer or leakage percentage of soil carbon credit? Any panelist have? Mr. Datta, actually, soil scientist.
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting question. There are global organizations like Vera and Gold Standard. They basically do the certification or auditing part. So, I mean, they have a clear guidelines mentioned here, like what are the practices that we are following and what are the carbons that we are claiming. So basically, they're like VR42 and VR17. Those are the documents that actually we are following in agricultural systems. But I don't exactly remember if there is any other. But at this point, I mean, those are available online. In terms of leakage and in terms of problem, I mean, leakage and problem is basically what we are it's like how much carbon is getting increased. So when you were talking about leakage, there might be leakages of nutrients or maybe nitrogen or potassium. Those kind of things can be a challenge. But when we are talking about improvement of soil organic carbon in the soil or improving the soil health, I mean, it's like there might be an issue with the temperature, because if there is a large temperature increase or changes, then there might be a loss of soil organic carbon, which because of this increase in the temperature. But to minimize that, generally what the carbon agencies do is like measure the soil organic carbon in the same period of time across the years, so that the weather gets pretty much same. Other than that, I am not sure if there is any other possibility of leakage or anything, but it's like delta improvement of soil organic carbon. That's what we are looking forward here.
Thank you, Dr. Datta. And one Mr. Mukesh again asking, what are the where the farmer should approach to get the carbon credit? I think individual farmer cannot get the carbon credit. It requires in a mass scale and all the panelists were emphasizing that. I think it is cleared in the during presentation. So one Mr. Naveen is how we can check how much price carbon credit sell by any other, already it's answered. One manager KCC, he is asking Dr. Datta, are your company doing any project in Gujarat?
Well, at this point, we are a very new organization in terms of carbon project development in India. But having said that, we are looking forward for the partners across different parts of the country. But in terms of Gujarat, no, not yet. But we will be definitely interested if someone proposes a good business case for us.
So, okay, sir, thank you. I think most of the questions, one or two are mainly general, and most of the questions have been answered by panelists. Now, because time up, and now I request our Honorable Director General, Chandrasekhar ji, to give your concluding remarks. Please.
Thank you, Dr. Balasubramani. I would like to thank all the speakers for excellent presentation, and followed by very enriching discussion. At the end of this webinar, even still around 328 people are there. That itself is an indication that all through it was very interesting and useful. Probably whoever is listening from the first speaker, they get an impression that time is not sufficient. We need to discuss more. So there is need for further discussion also. Maybe post webinar we can work on that. At the end, I get a feeling that we need to have networking of professionals, different stakeholders, very frequently to discuss on this issue, because many issues need to be clarified, and contextualizing carbon finance to Indian context itself is a bigger issue. So, at the end, Mr. Murthy also indicated that we need to come out with a clear policy, maybe in pipeline. But like that, even technology generation, which can support carbon financing, and challenges in extension on research side, extension side, policy side, finance side. I think there are, more areas to understand by all the stakeholders. So let us see how best we can network the professionals interested in carbon financing in post-webinar stage. We will work on that. Number two, many of the participants, they are very keen to have presentations and contact details of all the speakers. We will share with all the participants with the permission of all the speakers, so that you can also have specific questions clarified later also. Third thing, I strongly feel that we need to have a comprehensive publication on carbon financing, especially in Indian context. I request today's speakers, see whatever the presentation you made, I think that can be based on after this webinar. We can just convert into a short article and kindly share with us. Probably that will be a edited publication which will be useful for every participant. Maybe outside this webinar also, many more people are interested. Maybe through managed platform, we can ensure that it will reach the entire country. So we can take some more time, maybe another 1 or 2 months. No issue, but it is worth investing little effort on this. I request the cooperation of all the speakers in this regard. Please contribute to small article based on your presentation. And in the context of the discussion we held, after this all the presentations. In fact, if a farmer wants to avail carbon financing, a package of practice has to be clearly defined. So now, what is the basis for a farmer to have judicious use of any inputs and proper management? It is package of practice, which is approved by university. So the same package of practice, there is need for customizing to the small farmers who would like to avail the benefit of carbon financing. Dr. Balasubramani will be coordinating from manage side, and of course I just made observation of some of the important points, but all are on positive side. Only when we go to field we will start facing the challenges, but it is important to face them in field. Net zero commitment by nations and companies, it has given a lot of hope for carbon financing in future, and only 1% of the transacted carbon finance is coming from agriculture. So there is a lot of scope to enhance that. Stubble burning is a serious problem in Indian context. It is a national nationally debated issue. Maybe how can we convert into an opportunity through carbon financing is another opportunity for all of us. Then mobilizing minimum 1 lakh farmers, small and marginal farmers for this purpose is difficult but possible. Farmer would like to see additional benefits by coming together. If we can ensure, I don't think it is difficult, it is just possible. Especially we are living in an era where we are promoting large number of farmers producers organization and their federations, getting in touch with maybe 40, 50 FPOs or a single federation, we can get 1 lakh farmers. So what we are going to give to the farmers in turn, that is the important question to be answered. We have to ready with the answer, mobilizing. If that answer is very attractive, mobilizing farmers when we are seeing large number of FPOs and their federations is not a problem. The pilot studies of Syngenta Foundation, ITC, and NABARD are really encouraging. We have to treat them as field laboratories, keenly observe whether it is successful or not. Successful, what are the success criteria, and how we can upscale it. Maybe these pilot projects can serve as resource persons for us in all the further upscaling. NABARD and Syngenta and ITC projects are very interesting. And approving the methodology, matching the global standards, this is another challenge. Let us not forget that once we standardize the methodology, we have to ensure the adoption at small farmers level. It has to be monitored regularly. Speakers again and again, they reminded us that adoption of practices and monitoring regularly is a very challenging. Transaction cost is very high. How we are going to minimize the cost of monitoring and certification? Probably that is another issue. Solar pumps, they are giving a lot of hopes, and surplus solar power, if we can through sale, additional income can be generated. Probably that is another interesting aspect. And co-benefits to farmers and co-societal benefits. Unless we monetize, people don't see much interest in that. So somewhere, even though the money may not go to the hands of farmers, but it has to be monetized and told to the farmers that you are accruing this many benefits because of these practices. Himachal Pradesh watershed development project, of course, it is a guidepost for us. Probably every state we have a separate agencies for promotion of watershed development projects. Probably what they are doing that can be replicated so that it will benefit farmers in watershed areas. Basically, farmers in watershed areas are already organized, and they are also under administrative framework of some agency. The same agency can take the additional responsibility of carbon financing. Probably that becomes very easy rather than starting mobilizing farmers for this purpose. Livestock and waste management, another two opportunities I think we should explore. But getting the first return after 3 to 4 years is discouraging. I think it is, this single point makes small farmers to disagree with our proposal. But solely they're not depending on the carbon finance. It is only an additional benefit. So after 3-4 years, how much money they are going to get? Probably $8 to $10 per ton, whatever it is. That has to be converted, and some kind of hope and guarantee is given the way we give in contract farming. We can attract and get the commitment of small and marginal farmers. Linking investors to small farmers is a challenge, but when we have FPOs and their federation, it is not a challenge. Of course, the suggestion of non-banking financial institution bringing into picture, it's a very good option. And I feel, after several presentation, I think clearly we have to tell small farmers that by adopting all these practices, how much money he is going to get. So we have to demonstrate clearly cost benefit ratio to him. So probably that will make the farmer to come together and work for this, but otherwise continue to get the support of a group of farmers numbering around 1 lakh, maybe a challenging task for us. I was just seeing in the chat box, one Mr. Biswajit from Patanjali. He says that he is working with 1 lakh organic farmers and he is ready for partnership. See, this kind of organizations are there. Already they are working with large number of farmers for different purpose, and by associating with carbon finance, probably they will get additional income to farmers. That enhances the commitment of farmers to their organization also. It creates a win-win situation. Probably we can, post webinar. I think through consultation we can involve this kind of serious partners. Agroforestry seems to be good. In fact, profit-wise also it is very beneficial to farmers. Probably that can be explored. Avoiding heavy mission. Of course, heavy missions are not suitable in Indian context. So a farmer cannot, own a very big mission. Basically, we need to popularize small missionaries. That suits to carbon financing. Involving cooperatives was another suggestion. They are already organized. Then, of course, Agoro Carbon. Welcome to India. I mean, many people are, interested in working with you. We can facilitate. Of course, a clear policy from NABARD. Probably it will hasten the thinking and action and the results. So these are all some of the broad observation. I thoroughly enjoyed the discussion, very useful. I'm sure that maybe next level of discussions, taking it to next level is very, very important. We will work in that direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your nice concluding remarks. I think because we have made some beginning, and internationally, after listening to many presentation, a lot of things are happening. We have to ground some of the project, and many things are happening in ITC and many agribusiness companies. But next level, they have to farmers get benefit out of this carbon sequestration or carbon building. So I think as suggested, and in continuation to this for a webinar, we can have a close group and work together with the interested parties and move further. So thank you very much for successful organizing this program. It is because of your initiative and motivation we could able to organize this nice workshop, and many participants are appreciating all the panelists and also the content that they have delivered for this program. I must thank all the panelists for sparing their valuable time and sharing a wonderful presentation. I sincerely, once again, by name, I thank Dr. Mac Ramachandran, Dr. Venkatachalam Anbumali, and Sri CSR Murthy, Mr. Vijay Vardhan Masireddy, Dr. D.K. Bendisab, and Sri Chandrasekhar Haribau Barsavle, and Dr. Sudarshan Datta, Dr. Manish Anand for their wonderful presentation, valuable time. I also thank all the participants because till last minute they were participating and listening, and they were giving a very wonderful comments for appreciating the panelist, and also they are willing to extend their cooperation for further extending. So I sincerely thank all the participant friends across the country and also outside the country. I sincerely thank our team member, Mrs. Sadalakshmi, Uma, and entire IT team, Mr. Bhaskar and his team, and Mr. Venu for helping us in successful conduct of this program. Thank you once again. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Balasubramani, for nicely organizing this program.
Thank you, sir.
Wonderful
Thank you.
program. We'll catch up again. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. With your
Thank you, sir.
permission,
Thank you, sir.
I will close this program. Thank you all.
Okay.